what we used to call boom at the universities. In the 90s, we had now the family component. I think in our group, where we were paying about 6,000 to 16,000 shillings as a form of family contribution. Along the way, Mr. Speaker, the student population increased a lot. In the 60s and 70s, there were less than 1,000 students in the only national polytechnic, that's the University of Nairobi. In the 80s, it was in a group of 20,000, 30,000. In the 90s, it was almost 100,000 students at the universities. In the early 2000s, around 2010, the universities realizes that the money that was being paid was not by the program. They introduced what we call the DUC, the differentiated unit cost. This differentiated unit cost funded programs depending on the level of infrastructure at the university, the level of lecturers they have, the number of professors they had, and even the cost of the program. However, as a result of this, the government was not able. They were trying to fund students almost uniformly. If it is 80,000, 80,000, everyone. From social sciences courses to the degree program, to the medical and engineering courses were very expensive. Along the way, the universities got a lot of debt, accumulated debt, because the government was not funding adequately the amount of the cost of the program. As we speak, about 5 years ago, the universities have accumulated debt amounting to over 70 billion shillings. In that matter, the State Department for University Education then sat down and said, what is the solution to this? They said, therefore, can't we look for a new funding model? And in this new funding model, they are actually to cost a program at the exact market cost. And two, to make sure that we have three aspects of funding: the household, the loan, and the scholarship or bursary. All of it be paid to the university so that the university student, who is the center of funding, be able to pay, and then the universities will be able to run adequately. In this funding model, there are several variables that are put into consideration. One of it is the family income and many other things. And the key component in this particular, the key aspect in this particular form of funding is what we call the mean tester or the mean testing instrument. To know, how do I give Meli a particular loan and a particular scholarship? You will give him based on the school you attended, the parents, and all that. There are so many variables in that particular mean testing. This particular thing has caused a lot of problems in our homes and in our children, and even amongst ourselves, because we do not understand how it works. To explain this very well, I felt that it could not be good from our committee, because we've handled it a lot, that, Honorable Speaker, you can let members listen. You can actually have this from the horse's mouth. And we have the members, we have the PS State Department, and we have the CEO University Funding Board, and the CEO Higher Education Loans Board. I'd request members that kindly listen to each and every aspect of this funding process. Listen to each and every aspect of the funding process. I know it's a new funding model. It has some teething issues, especially on the mean testing. And what are we going to do so that we can build it and become a better model to address not only now, but going into the future? So, Mr. Speaker, the discussion this morning is actually from the state officers. They will take us through the technical aspects of the whole process. Members, I know you are from constituencies, you have even live cases of some students who are complaining, they don't understand it. We shall be ambassadors of it. You will give proposals on how to make it better and how we can mitigate on problems that we have.
For the Universities Fund. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Go on.
I didn't see that. Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker and Honorable Members of Parliament. I will introduce the new funding model for higher education. It is founded on principles of equity, inclusivity, and leaving no one behind. It shifts from the approach of block funding to universities through capitation to provide financial support to individual students from diverse socioeconomic backgrounds to access education in universities as well as technical and vocational education and training institutions in all programs that they qualify for, irrespective of the cost of the programs. Financial support to students is based on their levels of need as illustrated by their family incomes highlighted in 5 bands. For the first band, those are families with a monthly income of up to Kenya shillings 5,995. For the second band, that is families with a monthly income of between 5,996 to 23,670. The third band is for families with a monthly income of between 2,680 to 70,000. The fourth band, loans and scholarships are distributed across the various bands and households expected to meet a small proportion of the program cost. For the first band, the government supports up to 95%. That is 70% scholarship, 25% loan, and the family contributes 5%. For the next band, the government supports up to 90%, that is 70% scholarship, 60% scholarship, and 30% loan, while the family contributes 10%. Allow me also to emphasize that there is what we used to enjoy called boom for the students in the various bands. So for the first band, the students get a boom of 60,000, and the second band, a boom of 55,000. In the third band, the government scholarship covers 50%, the loan 30%, and the family contributes 20%. The boom or upkeep loan is 50,000. In the fourth band, the government scholarship covers 40%, the loan 30%, while the families contribute 30% and the students receive a boom of 45,000. And in the final band, the government covers 30% scholarship, a loan of 30%, while families contribute 40%, but the students also receive an upkeep loan or boom of 40,000. So in this report, Honorable Chair, Honorable Speaker, and members of Parliament, will share more information on the new funding model to deepen your understanding and that of other stakeholders, and also to highlight the extent with which the model is meeting the financial needs of eligible university students across Kenya. I appreciate the key issues that were raised in this House, Honorable Speaker, and I'll go straight to them. The first question was the accuracy of the means testing instrument in assessing students' financial ability and determining which band to place them. Honorable Speaker, the means testing instrument is the engine of the new funding model. It evaluates the financial capacity of families to determine appropriate financial assistance to the students to meet their level of need. The MTI has been used by the Higher Education Loans Board to award loans to students for over 25 years. As such, Honorable Speaker, the MTI, it is not new. However, it has evolved to provide funding based on the 5 bands explained above, which are aligned to the needs of individual students. The model has undergone rigorous review and validation to ensure accurate categorization. In 2024, a task force whose members I have introduced here, comprising officers from the Higher Education Loans Board, the Universities Fund, the State Department for Higher Education and Research, university vice-chancellors, and university lecturers also undertook a review to enhance and validate the MTI. I have attached a report and I'll just summarize it at the end as an annexure. However, allow me to emphasize, Honorable Speaker, that the MTI determines the level of need of students based on the following 10 parameters. The first one is parents' background, and here varied weights will be assigned whether a child is orphaned or from a single parent or has both parents. Gender, we have varied weights whether the child is male or female. And course type, we are working out on affirmative action for government priority programs, and this year we began with agriculture. Previous school type, varied weights are assigned to whether public or private, and the nature of the private school considered, because some of them are very low-cost private schools. Then there's also the aspect of expenditure on education, whereby varied weights will be assigned on the number of siblings in schools. But also, we look at this variable in terms of how much you're spending on, let's say, private education or national schools, because that then also speaks to how much you're worth. Then there's the family size and composition, with varied weights assigned to whether you are polygamous, monogamous, number of dependents, highest education level, and age of parents. Marginalization, varied weights are assigned to students from marginalized counties. And persons living with ability, we apply affirmative action. Chronic illness, we apply affirmative action. And the income as well. And allow me, Honorable Speaker, to emphasize that income has been really problematic to determine, because they are from the information that students provide, you can tell that they are able to live, so they can sustain themselves, they're able to go to school, but then when it comes to income, most of them will put 0. Actually, 70% of the students declared that their incomes were 5,995 and less. So then this calls in the significance not only of integrity, but also of applying some form of penalty to try and get the students to give the right information going forward. So each student is scored on each of these parameters, and the weights analyzed in a mathematical model. So all of these variables that I have mentioned, they have been given weights, and these weights are determined by stakeholders. So we put stakeholders in a room, students, parents, lecturers, members of society, and ask them, how significant do you think family size is in determining the financial capacity of a family? So each student is scored on each of these parameters, and the weights analyzed in a scientific mathematical model that determines the student's level of need and the associated band. In 2023, Honorable Speaker, the MTI was used to determine allocation of loans and scholarships based on the new funding model with a high level of success. Out of 112,741 students who applied and were allocated funding last year within the 5 bands, only 9,720 students appealed, and of these appeals, 5,087 were successful. That means that we were able to evaluate the additional information they provided and to ascertain that we needed to reband them. And some of these grounds for appeal are, for example, if a student went to a high-cost school but they were sponsored. So it is usually not very obvious to us until they provide additional information to show that either there was a harambe or they had a guardian or a sponsor, or their family circumstances have changed. Maybe the parent has lost a job or died. Honorable Speaker, let me highlight some of the challenges in the table which constrain the efficacy of the means testing instrument and therefore the new funding model. The first one is the accuracy of the MTI in determining the level of need relies heavily on the information provided by the applicant. Many applicants have been using cyber cafes and depending on the operators to submit their applications, often without thoroughly verifying that the information is correct. As I stand before you today, Honorable Speaker, I want to tell you that our children have declared that 80% of them, 80% of the 125,000 who applied are from single mothers. Yes, and 70% have declared that their families earn 5,995 and less. So we are dealing with issues of accuracy with data. And there's an operational, so because of this, sometimes there'll be problems in categorization when we penalize them on account of data, but there's an operational mechanism for appeal through the portal. The second issue, Honorable Speaker, is that for the number of siblings as a factor in determining dependence, the MTI cross-references data from NEMIS for primary and secondary school siblings, and from HELB and the Kenya Universities and Colleges Central Placement Service for those in colleges. However, some individuals may not have applied through the COOPS or for a HELB loan. Further, the NEMIS only records students from grade 3 and above, and so the students who are in grade 2 and below are excluded. As a mitigation, a comprehensive Kenya education management education system is being designed to address the gaps in data. Then we have a third problem, Honorable Speaker, about errors that may occur when universities communicate banding. And we have provided some two unfortunate cases whereby the correct bands were not communicated. This is a general problem associated with handling data at the different levels. And the universities have instituted a process of screening and confirming the accuracy of the letters because they are usually generated electronically. Students are also asked to verify their loan and scholarship awards on the portal of the Higher Education Fund. And students have a chance to appeal. The fourth and last issue is that our allocations will always be limited by the available budget. And here, enhanced collaboration will help us to streamline the available resources. And Honorable Speaker, I want to thank the members who are collaborating with the Higher Education Loans Board to provide additional resources for the students. The second question, Honorable Speaker, was how public participation was conducted in the sensitization of stakeholders on the higher learning sector. Honorable Speaker, the Presidential Working Party on Education Reform was commissioned by His Excellency the President of the Republic of Kenya in September 2022. One of the terms of reference of the Presidential Working Party on Education Reform was to review and recommend a governance and financing framework for TVET and also development of university education, research, and training. The Presidential Working Party conducted massive public participation, collecting the views of Kenyans on what kind of reforms they wanted to make in the education sector, and specifically in the financing of education. It was noted, Honorable Speaker, that the higher education, particularly university education, had become unsustainable as the public universities could not meet their financial and statutory obligations to their staff, suppliers, students, and other government agencies, including the Kenya Revenue Authority. It was public knowledge, and as expressed by Kenyans during the meetings organized and held countrywide by this task force, that the differentiated unit cost model was not working. Honorable Speaker, allow me to demonstrate how the differentiated unit cost model, to explain how the differentiated unit cost model was not working for universities. The cost of a program in medicine is 612,000 a year. This was determined when the differentiated unit cost model was implemented. According to this model, the government committed to pay 80% of the cost, while families would pay 20%. So, 80% of 612,000 would be 489,600. However, in the last financial year, for example, for continuing students, we were only able to pay 42% of the differentiated unit cost. So this was 205,632. So there, from the government commitment, we have a deficit of 283,968 shillings. On the other hand, families were expected to contribute 20% of the cost of the program. Most universities were charging an average of 50,000. So even with this average, there's a funding gap of 72,400 from the family side, Honorable Speaker. So when we add the gap from the government side and from the family side, there's a total deficit of 356,368. So what is paid of the total cost of the program, both from the government and from the household, is 255,632. With that deficit, Honorable Speaker, it became difficult for universities to meet their obligations in terms of paying lecturers' salaries, buying the reagents needed for the laboratories, sending students for excursions, and even employing an adequate number of highly qualified teachers, lecturers. So these were the problems that were presented to the Presidential Working Party on Education Reform. Kenyans were unanimous that the allocation of funding and resources remains a critical issue in the education sector. Inadequate financial resources impeded infrastructural development, provision of learning materials, and student and teacher support systems. A new model was therefore needed to turn around public universities and make them financially stable as they deliver inclusive, equitable, transparent, accountable, and quality education to students. It is on the basis of rigorous public consultation, therefore, Honorable Speaker, with key stakeholders in Kenya, including vice chancellors, students, university staff unions, the public, government officials, and higher education experts, the community at large, that the Presidential Working Party on Education Reform designed a new funding model for universities and TVETs. Subsequently, the new university funding model was adopted, guided by the recommendation number 14 of the Presidential Working Party on Education Reform to adopt a sustainable financing model for university education that combines grants, scholarships, loans, and household contributions for differentiated categories of students as vulnerable, extremely needy, and less needy, in order to address equitable access and inclusion in education. Honorable Speaker, the launch of the new funding model was followed by continuous public participation through organized validation, sensitization, and further consultation workshops across public universities and in other selected venues. In addition, there has been ongoing consultation and engagement through both mainstream and social media, resulting in useful feedback that has informed the improvement of the model. The views of the public arising from the public participation meetings, including students, parents, and university staff and management in workshops, seminars, mainstream and social media, and direct outreach to educational institutions have continued to strengthen the model and make it inclusive, equitable, just, and sustainable. Honorable Speaker, other key stakeholders sensitized are Huduma Center managers, Huduma Kenya Secretariat Contact Center staff, and the Huduma Cyber Cafe attendants to be able to assist the applicants. And further, a total of 77 institutions have been reached through Huduma Mashinani initiatives in schools, churches, and career fairs since June 17, 2024 to date. The third question, Honorable Speaker, is to confirm whether there is a possibility of extending the deadline for students to apply for funding beyond 15th of August 2024. I would like to confirm that eligible applicants have every opportunity to apply for funding based on a rolling deadline. The 15th August 2024 deadline was ostensibly aimed at catalyzing uptake and accelerating applications. The deadline was certainly meant to exert positive pressure on applicants to act swiftly to facilitate the processing of data and determination of household contributions in a timely manner. As at 15th August 2024, a total of 104,575 students had successfully applied for funding. The number increased to 125,893 students by 16th August 2024. These included 8,530 KCSE 2022 students. To date, Honorable Speaker, the total number of applicants is 127,623, of which 119,093 are of the KCSE 2023 cohort. It is important to emphasize, Honorable Speaker, that our projection was that only 122,634 students out of the 153,275 students that had been placed in various public and private universities would apply for funding. And this was based on the past trends where not everybody applies for funding. Some parents choose to pay. From past experience, therefore, students tend to relax when they are given a lengthy application period. However, given the challenges that some students have faced in applying for financial support, the deadline for student applications for funding is currently set at December 31st, 2024. Applications will therefore continue within the universities, and this message has been communicated on the websites. The fourth question, Honorable Chair, was on mechanisms put in place to ensure students who have not received national identification cards can apply for student funding. Honorable Speaker, we did ensure that students who have not received their national identification cards could still apply for funding through the new funding model, and the following alternative identification methods were introduced and successfully applied. The students could use first the Kenya Universities and Colleges Central Placement Service identification numbers. They were also allowed to use waiting cards which demonstrate that they had applied for the national identity cards. They used the Kenya Certificate of Secondary Education Index numbers and also their birth certificates. Honorable Speaker, the fifth issue was how information regarding the funding model was disseminated, including the role of education officers in clarifying application processes to students and institutions. Honorable Speaker, information regarding the new funding model has been disseminated through a comprehensive and multi-channel approach, including mainstream media engagements, workshops, and direct communication with the students. The objectives are to sensitize the public on the nature and benefits of the new funding model, to mobilize eligible students to apply for scholarships and loans, and to counter misinformation and disinformation. Digital communication campaign targeting first-time applicants joining universities, their parents and guardians, higher learning institutions, and the public is ongoing through the digital platforms, the websites, portals, social media handles, WhatsApp of Higher Education Loans Board and the Universities Fund. Additionally, students are engaged using targeted bulk SMSs, and through these SMSs, the students are guided to the Higher Educational Fund portal. The sixth issue, Honorable Speaker, was clarification on whether universities and institutions are to liaise with the students when applying for funding, or if students lose out due to inadequate communication, poor information transmission, or misinformation. Honorable Speaker, there have been instances when universities and institutions have not effectively communicated with students regarding the application process for funding, leading to missed opportunities. To address these communication issues, funding agencies have intensified sensitization efforts, resulting in the training of personnel within learning institutions, including the deans of students, registrars, and finance officers, to support students in applying for funding more effectively. Additionally, the funding agencies have assigned at least 2 relationship officers to each institution. These officers work closely with deans of students, helping to guide students through the government financing process and resolving any associated challenges. Despite being constrained by resources, the funding agencies have committed to maintaining a presence in learning institutions, particularly as new students report. A successful example, Honorable Speaker, is what was happened in Dedan Kimathi University, where 600 students were successfully guided to apply for funding through the combined effort of university staff and funding agencies when they reported to the institution, not having applied for the resources. Universities have engaged the students continuously through WhatsApp groups and virtual meetings. The institutions have also set up help desks to guide the students through the application process and, where applicable, the appeal process as well. Through the mashinani approach, universities scaled up support for all eligible students, going beyond the students admitted to their respective institutions, but also university vice-chancellors engaging stakeholders through the mainstream media. The seventh issue, Honorable Speaker, was to clarify whether the new funding model applies to university entrants for this financial year or if it also applies to continuing students. Honorable Speaker, presently the new funding model applies to 2 cohorts of university students. That is, the students who sat for KCSE in 2022 and those who sat for KCSE in 2023. That is Year 1 and Year 2 students. Students who sat for their KCSE in 2021 and earlier, that is those in Year 3 up to Year 6 for those taking medicine, will continue to be funded under the differentiated unit cost model. Through this model, universities are funded through a capitation grant determined by the number of students enrolled in each program, the cost of specific programs, and the available government resources. Honorable Speaker, the 8th issue was whether students will be required to pay the household component of the fees during admission, or they'll be admitted based on the scholarship component of the funds that will be disbursed by the government. Honorable Speaker, under the new funding model, students are required to contribute a portion of the total cost of university programs as fees based on the financial capacity of their families. Universities have established policies on fee payment with inbuilt flexibility that allows students to pay in installments, but they must complete this before the end of the semester. The operating principle is that no student will be denied admission based on their inability to pay the household component in full upfront. To date, unfortunately, Honorable Speaker, 3 cases were cited of universities that were demanding a down payment upon admission of the students. As a ministry, we engaged the respective vice chancellors, and I would like to confirm to this Honorable House, Honorable Speaker, that the students were subsequently allowed to register without paying the fees. This problem was attributed to challenges in internal communication from top down. The 9th question, Honorable Speaker, was whether the old funding model will continue with the calculation of the household component in the fees for the existing students, and whether this may lead to non-payment of the government funding for continuing students. Honorable Speaker, based on the differentiated unit cost, the old funding model will be phased out and gradually be replaced by the new funding model. But presently, both models are applied simultaneously, with the new funding model applied to Year 1 and Year 2 students, while the old one applies to Year 3, 4, 5, and 6 students. The 10th issue, Honorable Speaker, was whether HELB will continue to offer bursaries in addition to loans, as was the practice previously. Honorable Speaker, eligible students under the differentiated unit cost model, that is Year 3 to Year 6, will continue to receive HELB bursaries as well as their upkeep loans. In the present financial year, 2024-2025, a total of 37,125 students under the differentiated unit cost model will be allocated bursaries totaling to Kenya shillings 237 million. Honorable Speaker, allow me to draw the House to a typo on the second last sentence as I read out. So, however, students under the new funding model, that is those in Year 1 and Year 2, will not, so the typo says will only, but it is will not, benefit from Higher Education's Loans Board bursaries. Funding for these students will be limited to scholarships as well as tuition loans and upkeep loans only. Allow me, Honorable Speaker, to thank the honorable members of this House for the support they have delivered to enable us overcome so many challenges in the higher education sector. I thank you, Right Honorable Speaker, and honorable members of Parliament.
Members, you've had the explanation from the PS. PS, you'll respond to requests for clarifications. We'll take 4 at a time. Mili Odhiambo. Avoid making speeches, just say clarifications.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank the PS for that comprehensive explanation. I just want clarification on whether there is a working and effective appeal system for students that have been placed in the wrong band so that they don't waste a lot of time getting entry. Secondly, when do you factor in the changing circumstances? For instance, where you have students that were in a private school, but their parents have since died. I have such a case in my constituency. So is it within the application, or at what point do you take into account? And finally, on the issue of rural constituencies and digitization, Mr. Speaker, some of the issues that have been said about the cyber cafes. I know in my own constituency, I help students to apply. And even within my own constituency, there are days that they would sit for a whole day. There is no internet. So how, because that is a form of marginalization. And also, Mr. Speaker, the issue of that she has raised about whether there is a lot of dishonesty in data. Is it an issue of dishonesty in data or a reality of the country that we actually have very many poor people and very many single mothers who are not meeting, and that perhaps almost everyone falls within that first band?
Yes, Owen Bayer.
Honorable
If
Speaker, thank
you
you.
restrict to one request,
Yes.
it will make it easier for everybody.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I want to thank the PS for that detailed response, but I want to say this, Honorable Speaker, the Constitution provides certain parameters, especially when you come to equalization fund. There are some regions in this country that have long been marginalized, and they are part of Kenya. There's also one aspect when it comes to funding for counties. There is an aspect of poverty that is embedded inside that some counties get more money than others. That's my background. Honorable Speaker, I have checked some of the funding that have been given to students, particularly in Kilifi County, which is one of those counties that are part of, have been marginalized for long. They're part of equalization. They get resources, a lot more resources on the poverty index when it comes to funds to counties. But all of them, almost 80% of students from Kilifi have been put in band 4 and 5. Band 4 and 5 is actually the last band in terms of funding. How do you expect the poor students of Ganze, of Kaloleni, where even this country, the Constitution has identified as a poor area, be put among those that are rich? How do you expect the people of Kilifi to go to university? How do you expect even the local university there, which admits almost 70% of the local students, how do you expect that university to operate? Because it will not get as much money as other universities. Those universities in those marginalized areas will collapse based on this model. Honorable Speaker, what I request is that they revise. Students from Kilifi and marginalized areas that people know about should be put in band 1, where they pay the least amount in the terms of household. And that is the only way you are going to rescue this country. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
What is the point of order, Mshomba?
Mr. Speaker, I rise to just ask whether the Honorable member for Kilifi is in order to just say that the only needy students that need to be looked at in band 5 and 6 are from his constituency. Every child in this country under the law is needy. Everybody is needy, not only in Kilifi, even in Githongori. Everybody is needy. So we need to be treated equally by the law.
I want to respond.
Order, honorable members.
I want to respond to that, Honorable Speaker.
I understood Owen Bayer differently, but let the PS will answer. Let's take the third. Speaker. Mama Nairobi. Everybody will have a chance. Just be patient.
Thank you,
Ask
Mr.
one
Speaker.
clarification or one question.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Adding on to what the minority whip had mentioned about the students, I wanted to understand, we have right now Form 4 students, many Form 4 students are not able to access their result slips because they still owe the schools money. And I was told that we had actually lifted that, the Ministry of Education had actually said that no school should withhold certificates. So a lot of students are not able to actually apply because they don't have their result slips for the Form 4. So I want to know, how are you going to coordinate this, because you're one ministry, release of the results so that the students can actually apply. So a lot of students are being locked out because of not being able to access their result slip, because schools are holding them because they haven't cleared with the school the fees that are due to the school. So I want to know how we're dealing with that. Thank you.
No joyriders here.
Sir, this side.
Yes. Mary Emase. PS, after those 4, you respond, and feel free to invite any of the people accompanying you to respond, and your responses must be concise and precise, no unnecessary stories.
Thank you,
Emase.
Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, most of the students also who are applying for this funding do not have identity cards. They applied for IDs, some of them as early as January this year. Up to now, they do not have identity cards. I want to request the PS also to liaise with our counterpart to ensure that the students are able to get the IDs. Allow me to ask the second one, Honorable Speaker.
That first one she already covered in her explanation. Go on.
Thank you. Honorable Speaker, I want the CS to assure Kenyans, how sustainable is this funding program? Are all the students who are going to apply going to benefit, or there will be some rejections? And if you are going to reject some, because you've already alluded to the fact that the data is inaccurate, so how are you going, what parameters are you going to use to reject others? Are all Kenyans going to apply, going to get? And finally, when is the deadline for application for the period that you have extended? Thank you.
Patient members, everybody will have an opportunity, even if we sit up to 2. Go on, PS.
Honorable Speaker, the first question from Honorable Odhiambo was on whether we have a working appeal system. I'd like to confirm that yes, there's a working appeal system, and we invite all the students who have issues to visit the portal www.hef.co.ke. The next question was, when do we factor the changing circumstances? Ideally, at the end of every semester. So for example, right now we will capture the data, but if before release the funding. And so before we release the funding for the second semester, if a student's circumstances have changed, they can write to us or approach us through the appeals.
Sorry, Speaker, I was actually not speaking about a person who is already admitted and their circumstances change. Because when you are factoring in, you are going to ask about which schools they went to. Is there a question that asks that even though you went to this school, your parents have since died, so that it is not taken into account? I have live cases like that.
Honorable Speaker, I would like to confirm that yes, we capture information, current information on the family structure, and that would cover that component. Then the issue about the circumstances of rural constituencies and connectivity, we work with the Huduma centers, which are quite well spread across the country. We also encourage students to visit any nearby university or institution to be supported to connect and apply for this funding. And we have been working with universities to spread this message, working together with local leaders. Dishonesty in data, is it an issue of dishonesty or a reality of this country? I'm persuaded by the evidence, Honorable Speaker, that we have a serious problem of integrity, and it is the responsibility of all of us, leaders and families, and especially the educational institutions, to advance moral fiber through value-based education. Honorable Speaker, I will invite Geoffrey Monari, the CEO Universities Fund, to respond to the question by Honorable Bayer.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. My name is Geoffrey Monari, the CEO of Universities Fund. I'll tackle the question by Honorable Mbaya on the issue of poverty from Kilifi County. Indeed, we do consider poverty from across the country. We even go further to look at each location. We have gotten data from the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics where they have classified the poverty index per location. So that is what is considered, and there are marks that are given. In fact, the marks are 2%. We allocate 2 percentage points for this allocation.
Did you listen to his question?
Yes.
He asked a very simple question. Why is Kilifi classified as one of the poorest counties in Kenya, having its students who have applied, all or majority of them placed in band 4 and 5? That was the question.
Yes, Honorable Speaker, I'll go now to
I
that.
discourage you from stories. Just answer the question.
Okay.
You can say how many hands are waiting.
Many of the students who may have been classified in these bands of 4 and 5 depends on the information that they gave us. We highly depend on the information that is given by the students, and once we receive this information, we now are able to classify them. However, they have a chance to give us further information if they are not classified in the correct band. Thank you.
Yes. They have
Honorable
not finished answering all of them.
Honorable Speaker, Honorable Passaris wanted to find out how we deal with the Form 4 students who do not have their certificates. I would like to clarify that the certificate is not a requirement for applying for funding, only the KCSE index number, ID or birth certificate. Honorable Emase wanted to find out what we do with the students who do not have IDs. I think, again, we clarified their alternative identification documents like the KCSE certificate, and how the deadline for this new funding application process, once the students are at the universities, it is 31st of December, after which we shall start then revamping the tool as we prepare for the next cycle of admissions. And how sustainable is the funding for this program? Honorable Speaker, we realize that the problems afflicting universities require massive funding. And so the only way that we can address this is by sharing the burden of financing education between present and future generations. And that is the households, the government, and the students through the loans. For this method is sustainable because the students who receive scholarships, when they graduate, that money is then availed for the students who would be joining with a little addition. However, the sustainability really lies with heavy funding of the Higher Education Loans Board. And for this to be sustained, we are already working on designing a social bond, adopting what is applicable in Malaysia, where the Higher Education Loans Board does not depend on exchequer at all, but they run that bond. They have angel investors and other investors who then provide the capitation required for the system to be sustained through loans. Thank you.
Let's take another 4. Let's start with Mama Dagoretti. Mama, sio baba. Okay, let me list the 4, then sit Elachi. After Elachi, Osoro. After Osoro, Shimba. After Shimba,
It's me now.
I'll give Garissa Town. You will all have a chance. Just be patient. So ask one question each, no speeches.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mine is just a question that during this admission that starts in September, what is required of the student and parent as they enter the university? And what happened to the NEMIS number? Why can't we just use this NEMIS number as students go from their Form 4s to university? What is it for?
Honorable Speaker, I need clarity on the disbursement of what the PS called a boom, which I really don't think it's a boom, it's a loan, on the payment structure
of that amount? When is this student, okay, first on the disbursement of that amount, and on what category? Is it disbursed in the entire amount as it looks like, or I mean, as it stated, 60,000 on the band 1 or on budgets? Number 2, when is this student expected to repay back this particular loan? Alongside that, Honorable Speaker, they said, the peers has told us that the new funding model will not, the students under the new funding model will not benefit from the HELP bursaries. Then where is this money classified? Under what funding model is it classified? Because it is not on HELP. Because one, you've talked about it being, because that's what she said, it's not on HELP. And then there is this loan for maintenance, I mean for upkeep. Then finally, Honorable Speaker, finally this last one, I still do not understand how gender falls under the means, the means of testing instrument, Honorable Speaker. Like being female or male, does it warrant one, does it, or transgender? You know, I'm being reminded by, I don't know that she's, sorry, I'm being, how does that amount, how can you use gender to define means for a student? Or to calculate, or to, I mean, to quantify one's means in terms of amount? Is it that male gender is of, they are richer, or the other gender is richer or poorer? It really doesn't make sense, Honorable Speaker.
Yes, Shimba. One question, Baba. Just press and it will come on.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mine is to remind the ministry that we have a number of cases of suicide in our colleges. Our parents are also becoming victims of these social diseases because of the pressures that they experience as a result of educating our children. Why don't we bring all these forces together, where we have the women rep giving bursaries, the county government giving bursaries, the MP giving bursaries? Why don't we bring this fund as one, so that education becomes free in this country, so that we do not have this problem of judging who is poor and who is not poor in this country, where there is no real measurement to decide on the same. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, we have never had any secondary school being taken to court or being auctioned because of debts. Why are they very much keen on keeping our retaining certificates for school, children who have actually completed, and they need these certificates for whatever reason, of course, that is there? Why don't we have these things, you know, given a directive from the ministry? Because I remember the president during 2017, 2022, he gave a directive that all secondary schools should never actually return any certificate because of school fees. And this is still not yet done. What is your ministry doing, Madam PS?
Garissa. Those with their mics on, switch off.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Madam PS, for this clarity. One, I wanted to find out, because most of this amount of 30%, 40% goes to help loans. And I have an issue as a constituency, or as a people in Garissa County or Muslim communities, the issue of loan which has an interest in terms of learning. So if the Help Loans Board can look at it and see to it that maybe those who, Muslims who profess the Muslim faith, Islamic faith, can be considered for a Sharia compliant loans to access these facilities. Because as of now, from Garissa University, none of them applies for these loans. Secondly, there will be a disconnect between help and university fund. Why can't we have, as a ministry or as a country, one entity that is dealing with all this, so that you have one office that you can go to and apply for the loan and apply for university funding. Otherwise, we have two organizations that are carrying out both these issues. Thank you.
PS, respond to those four. We'll do another.
Honorable Speaker, Geoffrey Monari will respond to the question by Honorable Elachi, and Zuki will respond to the question by Honorable Soro. I will, however, take on the question asked by Honorable Soro on gender. And Honorable Speaker, I want to say that research has indicated that female-headed households are considerably more needy than the male-headed households. Thank you. And then the question...
You know, it's not scientific, but go on.
It's true. The question by...
There are more male delinquents in our society than female delinquents. Go on, go on.
The question by Honorable Shimba about retaining certificates for secondary school leavers. Allow me, Honorable Speaker, to engage my colleague P.S. Bello to then implement or enforce that directive. The issue about amalgamating resources from bursaries offered by the Women Rapes and the National Government CDF, we welcome that collaboration, and indeed some of the members in this House are already collaborating with the Higher Education Loans Board to pull these resources together. And we are praying that increasingly many more members will come on board. My colleagues will then respond.
P.S., before your colleagues come on.
Yes.
That issue raised by the member for Changamwe actually is the elephant in the room. All these resources come from the same source, the diminishing public purse. The MCA is giving bursary, the woman rep is giving bursary, the MP is giving bursary, the governor is giving bursary, the ministry is giving bursary, help is dispersing money, universities funds is giving money. Just hold on, members. We have private providers, banks are giving bursaries and scholarships. If you are able, and it's you to generate policy, if you can generate policy, this House will be more than happy to turn it into law, so that we can amalgamate and consolidate these funds, and they'll go a long way in providing free universal education for our children. Because what happens is, even as you talk of band one, where the offer is very generous to the student, the same parents will go to the MCA, go to the MP, go to the women rep, go to the governor, end up with everybody collecting money for the same course. If you can realign this, our problem will be solved overnight.
Honorable Speaker, we welcome that proposal and we are under advisement. We shall work on the relevant policy, and we hope that then the legal frameworks that apply can be addressed. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Next round.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
They have not finished answering.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I'll tackle the issue of Honorable Elachi. On the issue of reporting, the students will be required to go with the household income. However, where a family does not have the household income, the universities have accepted, through advisement from the Cabinet Secretary and the PS, that they will accept these students in the universities when they report. And this has already been effected by the universities that have already reported. You also recommended that we use NEMIs. This is a good recommendation. The only challenge is that students in private institutions, even up to the schools in the slum areas, are not registered in NEMIs. they are registered when they register for exams through the NEC. Therefore, that is where the challenge will be. However, the government is putting in place the chemist system, which will register all students from ECD all the way to the university, and we will have a new data system across the country. The other question I would like to tackle is the issue of the merger. There is already a proposal by the Presidential Working Party, which I believe should be either on the way to Parliament to merge these institutions so that the Higher Education Loans Board, the Universities Fund will be merged together so that they can be able to consolidate all these funds and have synergies for to support the education sector. Thank you.
Honorable Speaker, Mr. Nzuki will answer the questions that were asked by Honorable Soro and Honorable Major Deko.
Yes, Nzuki.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker and Honorable Members of Parliament. The question on the disbursement of upkeep is done twice in a year because it is modeled on the university calendar. So each semester, then a student will get the part of the stipend. So it is 50%, 50%. That is for the 2 semesters. I think I'm spot on that. On the matter of bursaries, bursaries are given to the students being financed under the DUC model, which was already clarified by the PS. So the bursary are aligned to the old financing model. On the matter of the students are expected to repay the loans once they have gone through their schooling. And in fact, after school, they are given a grace period of 1 year, meaning for starters, then it will be an average, the minimum period to start repayment is at 5 years. But for those doing medicine, of course, progressively, after they finish the course, they added 1 year, so that is a grace period. And that is an item, of course, we continue to discuss and engage with our clients. On the matter of brothers and sisters of Muslim faith, I know part of our resource mobilization strategy, we've been trying to get a Sharia-compliant product in cognizance of the challenges faced. And in fact, in the current proposals for the bills that will be tabled in this parliament, that Sharia-compliant product is part of the conversation. So yes, they will be catered for. Thank you.
For
this side, speaker, please.
Naika, number 1.
Nakuru, please. Mr. Speaker, Nakuru County.
Mama Lamu, number 2.
Joro, please. Speaker, Joro constituency. Speaker,
I'll give to
Speaker,
Clive, front, number 3.
Your front part, Speaker.
And I'll give.
Speaker, now you are in favor.
I'll give Mama Embu, number 4.
Yeah, thank you, Speaker.
Everybody will have a chance. Just be patient.
Thank you.
1 question each.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, I'm not clear on one issue. We have been talking about classifications of poverty. But there are, in my constituency right now, there's a lot of arambes taking place for children who have been called to the university. But some cannot even afford to do arambes, and they have been called. I want to know if there's a system whereby the very poor who live with their grandmothers and grandfathers can enter the university and the issue of payment is done when they have entered. That is my question.
Asante, Bwana Spika. Mwanzo ningependa kufafanua si hii marginalization iko, tusikatae. Wale wengi watachukua, lakini na sisi tusipokonywe uhuru wa kuzungumza. Kwa sababu Bwana Spika, sahihi ninavyokuambia, mumeona kwa media watoto youth 108 wameenda Al-Shabaab na wameuawa. Mimi leo nakwambia hapa 60 wametoka Lamu East. Na haya mambo kutukataza sisi kuwa marginalized ndio inafanya mambo hayo. Na Lamu ikiwa unsafe, Kenya is not safe. Hilo mwataka mulijue. Sio tukitamka tu marginalization, watu wanataka kutugandamiza tunyamaze. Hasa swali langu ni hili kwa PS. Sijui kama una mipango gani.
Nani unyamaze mama? Wewe uliza swali tu.
Mr. Speaker, Mutembei amezungumza marginalization, akasimama mbunge asiseme hivyo. Kwa nini asiseme hivyo na ndio iliyoko? Lakini kwingine kuna shida zaidi.
Endelea kuuliza swali.
Ndio nasema nyinyi mnaweza mkachukua kila kitu, lakini uhuru wetu wa kuzungumza msituatishe. Swali langu ni hili kwa PS. Speaker, please protect me kwa hao walio wengi.
You are fully protected. Order, go on, Raila.
Lakini shida zingine ni nyingi. Speaker nasema hivi kwa PS. Kwetu mwanzo PS amesema huduma center, lakini nataka ufikirie huduma center kama ya Lamu ni Lamu Town. Mtu akiunga kutoka Kiunga paka Lamu Town paka atumie 8,200. Area zile zenye unique challenges umezifikiria vipi? Kama sahihi Mkokoni hakuna hata network. Wale wamefikiriwa vipi? Usipange kitu ya jumuiya Kenya nzima. Kuna wengine wana unique challenges. Sisi kama Lamu East nataka kujua tuko brand gani ndio nujue kama mna ukweli au ni mambo tu mnajifanyia. Asante.
Yes, Clive. Yes, Elijah. What's the point of order? Use the mic. Just press it, it will come on.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and sorry for that. I was just saying, when we talk about education, which is an equalizer, and all of us here are members of parliament who have CDF equal, then it is very unfortunate when we start looking at our constituencies, regardless of what we are saying.
Point of order. Point of order.
You must understand.
Point
of order.
You have it.
Clive.
And it can work.
No, point of order. CDF is not equal.
Order.
Who is giving equal? I'm not, we are, Lamu East, you are not getting equal.
Oh, Mama Roida. I didn't rule you out of order, so sit down. You are in order. Go on, Clive.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Ask you one question.
Honorable Speaker, I would like to know from the PS if they have been able to merge the application of this together. If they have been able to merge the funding application together with the university placement application, COOPS. The reason I'm asking that, Honorable Speaker, is if this was done at the point of application for COOPS and placement, it means by February, all these issues we're handling today could have been tackled and the students could have had enough time for appeal process, whereby even them as a ministry can be able to use grassroots leaders like DCCs and ACCs for appeal program. Have they been able to merge that?
Thank you.
Secondly, Honorable Speaker, the banding. The numbers that have gone to band 4 and 5 are people earning over 120,000. And that's where they've put majority of the students. Yes, we understand that there is a lot of maybe fake information that came in. But even the statistics out there, do they justify to tell us that such many people earn over 120,000 shillings in Kenya?
Yes, double N.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Mine is one question and a suggestion. And I want to ask the PS, what are the modalities or parameters
Sergeant, can you give the PS
used for categorizing students to the different brands And how fair and effective is it in ensuring that most deserving students are selected for the correct brand? And the other suggestion, Honorable Speaker, to the PS is that there was a directive that if any student has a problem with the certificate because of the school balance, that they should not be denied their certificates. But the PS has categorically said that for the current students attending the universities, they don't need these certificates. But you still know that we have other students who are not necessarily going to the universities and they deserve to have their certificates. Can the ministry, through the PS who is here, allow us as honorable members to do the data, collect the data of all the students whose certificates are outstanding in the schools, in the secondary schools, and they have never been issued to them because of the fee balances that they owe the schools? Thank you very much.
PS, can you answer those four?
Honorable Speaker, I will invite Monari to respond to the questions by Honorable Naika and Honorable Roida. Then I'll come in with the question by Honorable Clive.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. On the issue of allowing students who, by Honorable Naika, allowing students who depend on Harambes to report to schools, I want to affirm that all the universities and the chair of the Vice Chancellor's committee is here, that the students will be allowed to report to the universities, and they'll find staff from the university's fund and help to guide them on how to apply for the application. The other thing I want to emphasize
Pana Monari, you know the problem we have?
Yes.
You are whispering very good things to MPs here, but out there things are different. Can you from here as an order, as a ministry, issue a public communication for children to go to school, their money can follow them? Because what you are saying here and what the vice chancellors are doing out there is totally different.
Okay. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I'm sure the PS will be able to respond to that. But one thing I want to emphasize on, we have also noted that the students who have been on Harambee are shy to tick on the form that they were on Harambee. Some of them have not been able to do that. So what we are saying is that let them just give us that evidence.
No. Mr. Speaker, let me clarify my point. I didn't say, I said there are some students who are called. They are not even able to do a Harambee. So they don't have a Harambee. They call and nobody comes. So can they report to university? Until
he has said they will, now go and tell them to report. Go on.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Let me go to the next question by Honorable Obo on access to application. I want to confirm that, number one, we understand that there are students who cannot access these facilities because of where they come from. And that is why we have given a chance for these students to report to universities, and we have facilitated our staff to be there to assist these students. So these students will be given a chance to apply while in campus, and then they can be able to submit their applications, and then we can be able to process those applications. Thank you very much.
Next. Who's answering?
Mr. Speaker, please.
No. You know we have to be clear. Are they reporting and be sent back home, or they are reporting to continue with education?
Yes, PS. Go on to the next.
Honorable Speaker, the questions by Honorable Clive on the merging of the placement body, that is Kenya Universities and Colleges Central Placement Board and Universities Fund and Higher Education Loans Board. I'd like to confirm that we have already started working on the initial design. However, this has not been implemented immediately because these platforms are being used actively for students to apply for funds and also to process their appeals. However, it is our commitment that during the next funding cycle, these platforms will be fully merged and the data will be processed simultaneously. Then there was another question on why this banding is skewed towards band 4 and 5. Honorable Speaker, without reliable data on income, it is very difficult for us to use income precisely to predict for the time being. However, I want to say, Honorable Speaker, that I have data here. I have data here from the National Examination Council for the results of the students who are now joining university. And according to this data, 84.8% of the students who scored C+ and above, 84.8% of the students who scored C+ and above studied in national schools. So we can see that actually this admission is skewed towards national schools. Honorable Speaker, in these national schools, the students were paying 53,000 minimum. We also know that there are other levies. Some of these students also studied in private schools. So it may be very unfortunate, but it is indeed the reality of our circumstances that the students from sub-county schools, the students from county schools and extra-county school are disproportionately represented in our universities. And so when we use the secondary school that a student went to as an indicator, and the students went to national schools, and they have not demonstrated that they were funded through Harambes, or they had a guardian, or bursaries, then it becomes very difficult for us not to discriminate, not to use that variable as a discriminator. However, this is what then opens the opportunity for appeal, so that with more information, we can then correctly classify these students. And this will also include visiting some sampled students in their homes. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker.
Yes, Owen.
My point of order is this, Honorable Speaker. The principle should be everybody is poor unless proved rich. Not the other way. They are saying everybody is rich until they prove that he is poor. This is Kenya. We know the income levels. Very few people go to 120,000. Very few people, 50, 60. Honorable Speaker, they need to change the principle. Then we will save Kenyan youth.
Yes,
thank you.
Yes, Minority Whip. Just press the button and it will come on. Look for the next.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to appeal to the ministry that their presumption is actually extremely defective. Even as we speak now, I have a student from my constituency who's just finished in Alliance with a balance of 94,000 Kenya shillings because it's CDF that has paid for her from Form 1 to Form 4. Most of our students from our constituencies are actually being paid for by CDF. That's why they're in those national schools. So if you can actually, and I addressed that issue earlier, and I would request them to relook at it. The issue the schools, of a school somebody attended is very misleading. Because most of us are in WhatsApp group fundraising, parents sacrifice to even do those fundraisers so that kids can go to good schools for a better life. Not that they can afford it. So can you please relook, because it's very misleading, the issue of those schools.
What you probably should do before we go to the next round, I thought I had the Monari say they have opened a desk at each university upon reporting, if the data you put in, because you know, the assessment is based on self-generated data. So if you put in data based on erroneous facts or misapprehension of facts or total misunderstanding, then advise students in your constituencies that upon reporting the university, they go to that desk, and I hope that desk is there, and explain that I went to a national school in Alliance or Kamsinga, not because I was rich, but because I passed well at standard 8 or 7, standard 8, and the bursaries from the CDF paid my fees all through. So my parents have nothing. But you are assessing me because I went to a national school where we pay so much, which was not my money, was not my parents' money, was from a public kitty. So also advise students when they report to go to those desks and make those clarifications so that the data available on them is then adjusted to the reality. Yes, let's take another 4. Yes. Let me start with Daoud.
Mr. Speaker, please. Mr. Speaker, front face of you.
Order, honorable members, no soliciting. No soliciting. I know all of you. Oundo, Pareo,
Honestly.
and
The
member right at the back, is that member for Uriri? Those are 4. We'll still take more.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to ask the PS. The PS has talked about boom. The boom she has talked about, is it per year or is it per month or what?
That has already been answered.
No,
that they give twice per year.
Equal amounts or the same amount?
Yes.
Okay.
First semester, 1/2. Second semester, the other half.
Fine. Let me ask my question now. That was not the question, no. Mr. Speaker, you know, going to university, it's not just tuition fees. I had a student who was going from Meru, and he got very good marks and all that. He had to pay for the whole year accommodation fees before he even is enrolled into the university. Mr. Monari has said they should go. What Honorable Naika has asked, if he goes there, will he be sent back? Yes, he will be sent back because accommodation fees has to be paid up front, the whole amount. So if it is going to be like that, then how are the students going to study? If they do not have the money, accommodation fees may be 50 to 100,000.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I just have 2 questions, specifically the first one, the timelines from the date of appeal and the timeline when the decision on what if there's been any change in the banding, how long does it take? Second, Honorable Speaker, the greatest problem in this funding model are the vice chancellors. They come and mislead the PS and the cabinet secretary, but when they go to back to the universities, they give the registrars completely contradictory instructions. For example, I just want to pick up what he has been saying. You have to pay the accommodation fee in advance, yet there is this boom that is coming they're supposed to use. I've seen the chair of the university chancellors as here. Can he give a commitment to this country today, here, that they're not going to contradict whatever decisions they make at the Ministry of Education? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Agnes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. And my question, the first question is that I want the PS to clarify to us of the deadline for the application. Because as I heard her speak, she said that 31st was the deadline, and then she said that these students can continue with the application in the schools. So I'm wondering, how will these students go to school, yet they are supposed to pay for the houses where they will stay. Then again, I want to remind them that the constituencies we come from are constituencies where there is no electricity and where there is no network. So at the moment as I was coming yesterday, there were so many students in town trying to struggle to apply for the bursaries. So did they really consider these students who are poor and who come from those areas where there is no network and there is no electricity?
Thank you. Oriri, member for Oriri. Oriri. So go on.
Okay, thank you, Honorable Speaker. First, allow me to commend your comments about this kind of funding we have. Because when I was doing my maths here, I realized that all the funding we are talking about can constitute around 80% coming from the government to the universities of their need. So by declaring universities and colleges free, we'll need only to top 20% and we make it free. And Madam PS, if you ask me, I would suggest that we work towards making university and colleges funding free. And if you can make a proposal to Parliament to consider funding universities and colleges, I think we'll do a better service to the Republic. My last concern, which I want to bring as a suggestion to you, when you look at Kenya as we are talking today, we are one country with a lot of inequalities. You talk about my constituency, you go through Turkana and other areas. There are students who completed their secondary education and expected to go to the university and cannot access network. They cannot apply for all what we are talking about here. They don't have the information we are discussing here today. And if you want to treat these people equally, we must provide equal opportunities and allow them to report to the colleges, and anything which is required of them, let them do at the college level. But let us not expect them to be equal with others and do the same at the family level. It's not possible. Some parents are too ignorant of whatever we are talking about here. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Yes, what's the point of order?
I think the ministry is living in maybe in space. Because let them know that in this country, or in any African setup, it is the poor that produce more children, because they do not have any TV, they do not have other entertainment. Their only entertainment is to produce children. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, if you want to equate students from national schools, having been perhaps maybe well off, but let me say this, we even try in our local schools to produce students who can go there. Just yesterday, Mr. Speaker, I was sending, hostel fee for my student in Laikipia University, because he says, I cannot be admitted. I have to buy them suitcases. I've got to buy them everything. So there is inequality in the first place where teachers are posted. You find schools like Alliance High School, they have all the teachers they require and even more. But in our schools, they do not even have teachers. Yet we even perform well, Mr. Speaker. So let them come out of their, their imagination that it is only schools at national level that perform and perhaps that are actually well off. Let them actually come out, out of that dream. Otherwise, these inequalities are killing us, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
You hijacked that point of order to say something unrelated. Now, PS, we've taken the 4. I'll still give you, members.
Thank you. Honorable Speaker, I would like to request the Vice Chancellor, Professor Daniel Mugendi, the Chair of all Vice Chancellors, to respond to the issue raised by Honorable Wundo, and the Vice Chancellor for Laikipia University, Professor Rotich, to respond to the issue that was raised by Honorable Ondege on the making university education free. Monari here will respond to the issue raised by Honorable Daud on accommodation fees, and Zuki will respond to the question raised by Honorable Shimba on the family tree and equality. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Vice Chancellor, tell us, are you, Vice Chancellor, the biggest problem in this setup? That's what. Yes, KJ, what's your point of order?
Mr. Speaker, the opportunity has been given to a Vice Chancellor. Maybe this would be the right time for them to answer a question that you asked that was glossed over. And the bigger question was on communication, Mr. Speaker. You did ask where the disconnect is between the ministry and the universities.
Your mic is off. Use the next mic.
Mr. Speaker, now that the opportunity has been given to a Vice Chancellor, maybe this would be the opportunity to answer a question that you had asked to Madam PS, but was glossed over. Mr. Speaker, you had asked, is there a disconnect between what the ministry is saying and what the universities are doing? And even on that, Mr. Speaker, the channels of communication, is it all being left to be communicated by the President, where the minister, the PS, the HELB, and all other people who attend to these issues in the Ministry of Education are mute to a point where you have had to call a kamukunji to explain it to members of parliament. These members of parliament are good consumers of media. They are very well versed with what is happening on the ground, but they still do not understand this funding model, Mr. Speaker, meaning that the communication that we are being given here today is not trickling down to the ground. We are being told that they're using a multi-channel approach, which includes, I don't know, digital media, social media, and other medias. Mr. Speaker, the point is that all that has been said prior to today has not communicated to the publics in the way that it should. So now, could the Vice Chancellor tell us, are the Vice Chancellors sabotaging the communication? Are they part of the problem, or are they part of the solution that we are seeking, Mr. Speaker? Thank you very much. And this is in terms with the flow of communication. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Vice Chancellor? Who do you want to inform?
Mr. Speaker, I would want to inform my brother, Honorable KJ.
He's over the floor.
It's a very important point, Mr. Speaker.
Go ahead.
Last week on Saturday, the good professor of Embu. Yes. No.
Mr. Speaker.
Can I, Mr. Speaker?
I hope you are not attempting to answer for him.
No. I'm just informing that Professor Mugendi, I had an occasion in my constituency where a team from Embu University came to the function to communicate to the function which I had about the university funding model. Mr. Speaker, I'm not trying to protect Professor Mugendi in any way.
Order. Take your seat. Order. Take your seat, please. Take your seat.
I do not want to be informed. Find him out of order.
Honorable Ruku. Order. Honorable Ruku, when I last checked, you are not a Vice Chancellor. Vice Chancellor, can you respond to those concerns?
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker and Honorable Members. I have two issues that I've been asked to respond on. The first one was on the issue of if the students come to our universities and they have not been able to pay the household component, whether we allow them to continue standing. And I want to answer in the affirmative, yes. And we have said that there is no student who should be turned away because they have not been able to pay the full household component. Every university has a mechanism that we have put in place to ensure that students will be able to pay the household component as they study. And many of us, the arrangements that are in place is that if they're able to keep paying something small, then they continue doing it, so that by the time we get to the end of the semester and we are about to do the exam, then they should have finished paying. So I want to say that we have communicated very clearly. We have communicated very clearly that to the VCs that they shouldn't be turning away the students.
Yes,
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
It's a point of order, is it?
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
I think it is wrong for Professor to come to this house and claim that there is proper communication. The elephant in the room, Mr. Speaker, is communication. We have so many forums of communication. Point of information. We look to them, Mr. Speaker, as the epitome of knowledge in terms of communication. They have those courses in their degrees. Mr. Speaker, a simple communication through the X has not been expressed by these institutions. That's why we are here right now today, Mr. Speaker, carrying so many cards for Harambes because of communication. That's number one, Mr. Speaker. Number two, Mr. Speaker, there is a trust deficit on the system. We have not heard to what extent does this data is being unbundled through the system and how much is a human intervention. That's why you have a problem that people who are supposed to be in bundle 1, they are now in bundle 4 and 5. Mr. Speaker, I think before the Chancellor's communication, I think you need to address the clear forums of communication, because that's why we are here. We are not able to communicate to our people on the ground on this issue. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
So, Vice Chancellor, what you are telling the members of Parliament here is that no student will be turned away on reporting day 1 for the simple reason that they have not been able to marshal accommodation fees, but they can pay along the way. Is that what you are telling the House?
Mr. Speaker, sir, the issue of accommodation is different because, as you know, accommodation is linked from registration, and actually most of the accommodation providers are private people. But in terms of fees, that's what I'm saying, the household contribution, which we've been talking about, either the 5% in band 1 or the 10% in band 2 or the 20% in band 3, that is what I'm talking about, because that's the fees that comes to the university. There is no student who should be chased away because they have not paid household component.
Use the word will, not shall.
Let them answer the other questions.
They have answered.
Yes.
Point of
They have
information.
only responded to Oundo's question. There was one from Dawood, from Pareyo, and from the member for Nyatike.
Yes, sir.
Okay, go on.
Yes, Honorable Mr. Speaker, sir. The other question was on the issue of communication and what we are doing as Vice Chancellors to ensure that we are communicating this message to our stakeholders. And I want to say that, yes, the message is a process. And that's why we are here today talking about the student-centered model or the new funding model. I'm sure members of Parliament have even seen our peers in media houses. They have seen some of our officers in these state agencies, in our state agencies, and also some of our vice chancellors in media houses communicating about this new funding model. I want to say it's a process. It is something that is ongoing. What we have agreed as vice chancellors is that we are going to adopt constituencies that are in the universities where, the counties where our universities are located. And we've already liaised with some of you MPs, and I think members of Parliament, honorable members of Parliament, and I'm sure you know it. And we have said that we want to be accompanying you when you have your public barasas, when you are meeting with your stakeholders, so that we can be able to talk about the new funding model. And I'm sure it is on that breath that Honorable Roko was trying to clarify that last week in a function that he was involved in, I did send a team to be able to do that. The other issue, Mr. Speaker, sir, is that also as a Vice Chancellor...
Yes, hold on, Wamishomba, what is
Mr. Speaker,
agitating you?
Mr. Speaker, I'm quite agitated because it looks like we are wasting our time. We've been here since morning wanting to get clarity, serious information from people who are expected to disseminate information. If this is the style the Honorable Professor is using to disseminate information to us, what about the students who have no patience with him? We are wasting our time, Mr. Speaker. I think it is high time we acknowledge that this system is quite a mess. We must go back to the drawing board. We are wasting the life and the future of our children, and these people who are entrusted with information dissemination should be fired with immediate effect because they are doing a lot of nothing to our country.
Yes, Professor. Professor, let's hear the professor first.
Professor has finished.
Maclap, what is the problem?
Mr. Speaker, we are not interested in those stories of the professor. So, Speaker, what is very important to communicate to the country? Solution, if we want to sort out Kenya, if we want to sort out Kenya today and now, so Speaker, make a pronouncement to the Cabinet Secretary or the President to make a pronouncement to the children of Kenya that they all report to the university and do the necessary documentation. The documentation can be done in the university, the accommodation can be sorted out. So, Speaker, two. So, Speaker, make the ministry, the minister, or the President of the Republic of Kenya make a pronouncement to the people of Kenya, the children of Kenya, that all certificates of students going to university be released unconditionally, because those certificates, national examination, the government paid for examination fee in Kenya, and therefore they have no relationship with payment arrears of fees in Kenya, Mr. Speaker. They were all paid in Kenya. Those two pronouncements, Mr. Speaker, sorts out Kenya immediately.
Professor, can you finish up? Order, let's hear the professor. Hold on, KJ. You raised an issue, let him respond. That's why he's on his feet. Let him respond.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker and the members. I think we have communicated that it's a process. Honorable Member KJ, you raised the issue of communication, and that is what I'm addressing. And I'm saying communication is a process. All of you have even heard His Excellency the President talk about the new funding model, but I think it's a process, and that's we are engaging in that process, and that's why I was saying, as Vice Chancellors, we have a strategy, because we have said we will start with our students, our staff members, our senates, our unions, and then we also go to the populations using the MCAs, the members of parliament, so that then we can be able to get this information to the population. Thank you.
Point of order, Speaker. Point of order, Speaker.
Let's finish those four first.
Honorable.
Let's finish those four. Order, honorable members. The good Vice Chancellor has said that they will try. It's sufficient. Whether it's sufficient or not, it is you to judge. But what we have told the PS and her team, that even with this very good model, the deficiency has been communication. It is now that we are hearing that even children who don't have money should go and report. Those with distorted data should go and correct at the universities. This is something that we didn't need a Kamkunji to be told if it was communicated out there. So PS and your team, when you go up there, upscale your level of communication. And Vice Chancellor, you know, there are some constituencies like Turkana North that have no university. So if you are going to limit yourself to going to the county where the university is domiciled, then you disadvantage constituencies that don't have universities. Find a way And this parliament will assist you. That's why I brought you here. We have the chairman of education here. If you have any message that requires to go to the public nationally, pass it on to the chairman of the committee. I'll give him free airtime in parliament to communicate to the public so that they can be able to get what you are doing. Secondly, you have taxpayers' money. You employ people to do communication in your ministries. Ask them to do this so that the public can get to know. Because the problem we're having is just lack of adequate or no communication at all.
Aye, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, here the other answers first.
Honorable Chair, Honorable Speaker.
Member for Molo, hold your horses.
Honorable Speaker, thank you very much for the opportunity. Allow me to also respond to the question that was raised by Honorable Dawood regarding the accommodation fees and to say that some universities run a needy kitty and such universities are supporting students with challenges in accommodation. They are also prioritizing them for student accommodation within the hostels. Allow me, Honorable Speaker, to invite Monari to respond to the question raised by Honorable Parey and
Point of order, Speaker. Point of order, Speaker.
Yes, Dawood.
PS has just talked about needy students being given accommodation, but we are saying that they should be enrolled and accommodated so that they are not sent. There is no point in enrolling a student going to university and he doesn't have anywhere to sleep. Will he sleep on the streets?
Honorable Speaker, Mr. Nzuki will respond to the question on family structure by Honorable Shimba, and then the VC for Laikipia University, Honorable Professor Rotich, will respond to...
Before that, Honorable, Madam PS, why can you consider, because if this boom that comes slightly later than the admission is part of the money the students will use for accommodation, why can't you direct the vice chancellors to liaise with accommodation providers and give them an undertaking that we will pay this boom at this particular time, let in the students. You can even have a way of paying some of the boom for accommodation directly to the providers so that the children are not thrown out of school. Why don't you have that kind of arrangement? Yes, yes, go on.
Honorable Speaker, I am under your advice and we shall work on this proposal with the Vice Chancellors, on this directive with the Vice Chancellors. I will...
Just hold on. Bwana Vice Chancellor, will you consider telling, you are the chairman, right? Yes. Of the Vice Chancellors. We would advise that you communicate with your colleagues because the boom you are going to pay will go towards accommodation. You already said that it's private enterprise that provides accommodation, but the money will still come from the boom. Can you organize to allow students to report, have the accommodation available, on the undertaking from the university that boom is coming and accommodation will be paid so that education goes on uninterrupted?
Okay. Obliged, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
So,
Mr. Speaker, there's a challenge. No, it is important, Mr. Speaker. You know, it's important we say the truth. The truth of the matter is that this boom goes directly to the student account. Now, the five chancellors, they must find a way of enforcing the students once they receive this money in their personal account, that they are able to transmit that money in a way, I don't know how, to the five chancellors where they can arrange the arrangement.
Point of order, Chair.
Mr. Speaker, on the same point, honorable members, what we have suggested, Honorable Ruku, is that they find a mechanism of giving a promissory note, a promissory note to the landlords, that these students will get money from us. And when they get, they will pay. If they don't pay, they will be locked out.
Mr. Speaker. 1 minute, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker.
Article 27, Mr. Speaker. Article 27 of our Constitution talks about equality and freedom from discrimination.
So who is being discriminated?
The student.
How?
The money still goes to the student. I'm not in the point of the money for now. My point is the entire model or the financing model which we are trying to panel beat here, Mr. Speaker. The managers, the university managers, have ensured that students from the very remote areas, very remote constituencies are discriminated. In my constituency, Mr. Speaker, there are sections where there is no mobile network. In my constituency, Mr. Speaker, there are students with no mobile phone or computers which can be used or internet which can be used to make these applications. What I'm trying to say, Mr. Speaker, is that...
Point of order. Mr. Speaker, point of order.
We want a way forward, Mr. Speaker. We want a way forward. We came here for Kamukuji because we want a way forward.
Mr. Speaker, can I be protected? Can I be protected, Mr. Speaker?
No, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, surely.
Way forward. We want a way forward.
We have been doing so well until the member from Bere North arrived.
Mike, please.
We've been doing so well until the member from Bere North arrived.
Yes.
First, by attempting to defend vice chancellors, and secondly, interjecting to say things that were not relevant to what we are discussing. PS, can you go on and finish? After the PS, I'll take one round, then we close.
Honorable Speaker, I will invite Mr. Monari to respond to the two questions, one by Honorable Pare and the other by Honorable Ruku, and Zuki to respond to the question by Honorable Shimba, and the VC for Laikipia, Professor Rotich, to respond to the issue of can we make university education free? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. On the issue of appeals, which was asked by Honorable Undo, from the date of application, we want to promise that within 3 weeks, we shall be able to process the appeals, and 3 weeks from the date of application. So if a student applies from today, we shall process within 3 weeks. So we urge the students to apply as soon as possible so that we can process them and they can get their money. On the issue of lack of network and electricity, that is why we have given a commitment that these students can be able to report to the universities where they can be able to access the facilities to apply. No student will be left behind, and we ensure that the students, and we have staff there who can be able to guide these students from far-flung areas so that all the students can be able to apply. And that is an assurance that we want to give the honorable members. On the issue of the prolonged allowance to apply until December 31st, this is in the spirit of ensuring that no student is left behind also, because it will allow students who did not have a chance to apply or who did not have the necessary documentation to apply a chance to be able to apply within reasonable time. Thank you.
The next.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. On the matter of the MTI being able to accommodate the family, different family sizes and the various components that constitutes a family, of course, the family structure parameter is a big one, which considers single parenthood, orphan children, And of course, the size of the family is considered. How does it play out? Through the NEMIS and universities and TVET ecosystem, we are able to establish the family size of where the applicant is coming in terms of those people who are engaged in the education sector, and then we derive from the income that has been declared, we get a per capita. So we divide the income that has been declared by the number of persons to get the per capita, which of course will not then disadvantage guys from large families. Nevertheless, we have said those children who are coming from disadvantaged families and they have been supported through school, the platform allows them to say that they were supported through school, and there is evidence by attachment of sponsorship letters or recommendation by the chiefs, and that puts them to an affirmative action straight away in terms of 100% support. Thank you.
Okay, we'll...
Honorable Speaker, the VC.
Yes.
The Vice Chancellor was to respond to the issue of free university education.
Yes, Vice Chancellor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Laikipia, you say?
Thank you. My name is Joseph Oto, the Vice Chancellor of Laikipia University. Honorable Speaker and honorable members, the matter of whether the university education should be free, I report or I respond that this will be a policy issue with this parliament, and the government needs to decide and make a decision on it. And I think with all the monies from CDF, Women Rep, and all the other supposed to go to students, if they can be consolidated, then the university and colleges, including TVET, can be made free. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay. Now let's take another round. Member for Gichugu, then followed by Rachel Nyamai, followed by Rindikiri, followed by Karole Omondi, followed by Mama Pares. Wewe umeuliza tayari? You can't have a second bite. Followed by Ngoja.
Followed by Joro.
Followed by Maclap.
Speaker, utaniza.
Maclap.
Speaker is advanced.
And then member for Aldai. Okay, let's start with us. Kishugu, one question.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Kishumu.
I think matters of education are matters of national importance, and that is why this particular issue of education was left at the national level.
No preambles, just ask the question.
Yes. There is what we call in government collective responsibility. This is just one department under the ministry. Why is the department which is handled by the PS before the House today not involving the other departments? The other department under the ministry is devolved at the constituency level, and they can be able to use that channel for communication through the CS. And also this house is also represented by members of parliament in 290 constituencies. Why are they not using the available channels that even as members of parliament use when we are also giving bursaries? I think...
Order, Mshomba. Take your seat, Mama.
Please protect me from this member who's harassing me.
Okay, you will not be harassed when I'm here.
Mr. Speaker.
Take your seat. Order, honorable members. You will not be harassed. Take your seat.
He's not my boss. Why is he harassing me?
Take your seat. Take your seat. Let's not have inside shows to such an important issue.
Mr. Speaker, the point I'm making is that why is the department not using the available channels of collective responsibility in making that information available at the lowest level? Mr. Speaker,
you've made your point.
There is one point, Mr. Speaker. From the data that has been given by the PS,
about 125,000 students will be joining university. That's correct? If I divide by 290 constituencies, that is only about 440 students per constituency. It is very easy to call all those students at one center and establish their needs, and also be able to have, to apportion the money according to the needs of those children, instead of using scientific methods of mean testing instruments, which are scientific and they are not real. The reality is on the ground. Let all the students report, we will do it at the constituency level, and we will be able to give them the data of the need of the students.
Rachel Nyamai.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would like to...
Muguka.
I think Mira. Mr. Speaker, thank you very much, because the resolutions that you have made this morning have already given us solutions. And I want to give you an example of this message that I have. There is an issue of the woman you met on Saturday, who has a balance in Ikanga Girls of 56,320. Are you going to clear this, or the student should go to university? I have responded, the student should go direct to university. So I would like to thank you very much for that. Mr. Speaker, this is my question. That I have students who have been wrongly banded. I know them, I know their parents, and they are in band 1 and 2. But they have been given band 4, band 3, 4, and 5. And I would like to ask the PS, who I agree that she has really tried to answer these questions, but I would like to ask, is it possible to compare the data that you are receiving with the data from the secondary school? Not comparing with the secondary school that child went to, but the data from that secondary school, because the children are known, and link it with what the Honorable Member for Kishugu has said. Or also link it to data from the ground, from provincial administration, because these children are known from the Ministry of Interior. Will be able to get data now that there are universities that are not telling the truth. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First, allow me, Mr. Speaker, that Parliament is given information that is factual. The statements are factual. Now, I can tell you and prove to you that some of this information you have given here is not correct. And we have said, and I agree with what Honorable Gishima said, there is no information on the ground. I have and I engaged Madam PS, and you need to confirm, because I went to the ministry at the county level, I went to the sub-county at the constituency level. What you have written here is wrong. Please correct that impression that you have created. Number 2, Mr. Speaker, you need to convince us that this mean testing is correct. I would have expected you to come to Parliament with the data tabulated per region, per criteria that you have used to justify that the mean testing that you're using is correct. Now, without that, you cannot claim that a student are following by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It is wrong.
You've made your point. Carolo Mondi.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I'll try to be very brief. Let me start by saying that this issue is not new to Kenya. I think one of the countries with the best funding model for university education is Canada. And it is very highly automated, so that there's no fraud, there's no corruption, and the system works. I think the biggest problem we have here is the way these social parameters are being applied. We are dealing with a financial question, but we are applying social parameters, not financial tools. I think that is the biggest problem in this model. And what I would recommend is, if you look at all these social parameters, they will not tell you what somebody's income is or financial status is. You need to approach this thing using financial tools, like you are a credit committee in a bank. And this information is there. And the application, I would suggest, are made while people are still in high school, so that the teachers and the students can work together and capture the historical data on how those students are being financed over the years and fitted into the matrix, whatever system you call it. If you have a bank credit system, every parent has a telephone number these days. You can go and get M-Pesa records of a family, and you will know their income. You can go to KRA. You can go to salary slips. There's enough financial tools that if we apply to this system, we will get to know who are in need and who are not in need. Because if we leave it blank and use social parameters like polygamy and all these other things I'm seeing here, we are opening a very good system to fraud and corruption, and to politicians like us who will want to encourage people to go and get loans without having the responsibility to pay for them. This system only works where there is honesty and where there is repayment and where there is no corruption. So the first thing you must do is to change the parameters. Don't focus on the social parameters as much. Use financial tools. Secondly, thirdly, I think for those students who have applied, and they should apply while they are still in high school, when they get the letter, that letter should serve as a guarantee for their admission, even before the funds are disbursed. Then we will solve a lot of these other problems you see us having here. But otherwise, Mr. Speaker, social parameters, open to manipulation, open to corruption, we will kill a good idea. Start using financial tools in making analysis of who is in need. People will not go to the wrong banks if you act as a credit committee of a bank. And the information is there. Let nobody tell you there's no information. There's enough information. How much did you farm last time? How much crops did you harvest? It is there because people are receiving fertilizer. People are receiving different things. Otherwise, these social parameters will not help us. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Maklap.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
All of them, you'll answer them together.
Mr. Speaker, I'll be very brief and candid. Number one, Mr. Speaker, using this right after they have used bans on monthly income of families to determine what a family or a student should pay. When you turn to the other page, Mr. Speaker, they are saying there is a mini testing tool, and they have come up with parents, gender, cost, expenditure. Mr. Speaker, there is no collinearity between these social factors that do not have an assigned figure mathematically and the incomes of the families. Mr. Speaker, the incomes of the families are determined by salaried people. Salaried people. To determine these bands are determined by salaried people. But those who are not salaried, Mr. Speaker, are actually unique. It's unpredictable. So they are using an imagined constant as opposed to continuous variables that continue to affect income of families. So I will challenge that, Mr. Speaker. Two, and propose this, Mr. Speaker, and going to the last. I propose to the team that this thinking of funding of university is good, but requires refinery. Mr. Speaker, if you do 5% on cost over cost in university and allow the students pay the fees on 5% of the cost that they do as opposed to these funds, then you will have a graduated, evenly funding, Mr. Speaker, that do not discriminate and based on what you earn, Mr. Speaker. And lastly, Mr. Speaker, is the parties. Mr. Speaker, the resolutions that we want to come to this house, because we have not, you have invited us to come to this house, not in vain, but to sort out a problem in Kenya. Mr. Speaker, resolution number one that you've said to come out very clearly this afternoon, Mr. Speaker, because the students are being admitted daily, is number one, the students do report to university and the university sort out the accommodation and the appeals and the applications when they are in the university unconditionally. Second, Mr. Speaker, that a degree, as you say, Mr. Speaker, of all certificates else, I am lucky because in the schools that I am called to release certificates, because I am aware, Mr. Speaker, of a circular from the Ministry of Education saying that all secondary schools to release certificates, and they are not doing it because of this communication. So, Mr. Speaker, that should communicate it throughout the Republic of Kenya. And finally, Mr. Speaker, the parties, the presidential party to funding of university education. So, Speaker, can we review this so that you include the members of this house, because this is where the rubber meets with the road. We know what is happening in Kenya. We don't want people to make decisions who are living in utopia. We are the people who meet with the customer daily basis, Mr. Speaker, and we have the best solution for education in Kenya, Mr. Speaker. I beg to raise my case, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Aldai.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I really raised my hand because I really wanted to bring out this point.
You have now
thank you, Mr. Speaker. This means testing instrument, I think, is now the biggest elephant in this room. It is bigger than everything else because the methodology or all these parameters they've set up are what is actually causing students to be placed in bands that they do not belong. I will take a student from the Nandi escarpment, where I come from, the lower hills of the escarpment, who has been called to Nairobi University. He has filled this form because when he tried filling, he came to a cyber near, maybe far away from his home, tried filling this despite the difficulties, filled this information, told you, and this information they come and check on whether you are marginalized. That particular kid is marginalized, but because our data here in Nairobi does not show that this kid who is living in an escarpment is marginalized, he will get a 0 or whatever rating that he gets there, yet that kid for real is marginalized. You come to a child, maybe has both parents, but because the system says when you have both parents, maybe your rating goes down. When you have one parent, the rating goes up. There are even families where one parent or an orphan who were given inheritances that are better than situations where both parents exist. So if you look at the whole MTI tool that is being used, that is where the elephant in this room is. And therefore, and when you tell these students, come back for a review of your rating, they will still use the same tool to review the same student. So at the end of the day, it is a zero-sum game because this student will go to Nairobi University, comes from Aldai, go to Nairobi University.
University of Nairobi.
University of Nairobi, okay.
Yes.
The University of Nairobi.
Yes. The
University of Nairobi. And they are told, come back and review. The person seated at that desk reviewing does not understand the difficulties this child is coming from. And we're told, okay, so what do we want us to change here? The child changes 1, 2 things. They review the child from band 5 to band 4. Yet that child actually needs to be in band 1 because of the situation in which they are in. So my issue, Mr. Speaker, is that this particular banding and this particular review is the major elephant in the room, which is something that needs to be looked at. And I would like the suggestion that reviews of these students be done right at the location, at the village level, because we have not reached this level. We've not reached this level as a country to be able to band and review students like this, because even us as human beings, we don't give the correct data. And finally, Mr. Speaker, we have so many budgets all over, like the political parties fund. It can also be used and be taken to universities so that universities can get more funding for students to upgrade the facilities and all those kind of things. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Let's have them answer that. Yes, what's your point of order, Wakili?
Mr. Speaker, I think from what I've listened to all the members, I think we have reached a level whereby, Mr. Speaker, we have started repeating ourselves. I think, Mr. Speaker, it's high time you give directions. No, I'm not spoken. It's a high time, Mr. Speaker, you give directions. I think we have captured the elephant in the room, the MTI, the communication, the bundling together of the bursary. I think it's high time, Mr. Speaker, so at least again, we can be able to conclude. Kindly, Mr. Speaker, I request that you give directions. Thank you.
This man is a very
Mr. Speaker, I have a different point, please. I beg you.
Just hold your horses, Mama.
Thank you.
Honorable.
I didn't say ride your horses. Hold your horses.
Honorable.
Yes.
Speaker.
Some of them are overlapping. Like the issue raised by Rindikiri and Maklab is almost the same. So can you answer them quickly?
Yes.
I do one last round, then we adjourn.
Honorable Speaker, thank you very much. I would like to respond to the issue raised by Honorable Rindikiri. I did communicate with him and provide the information that he requested for. That information was very useful to other members of Parliament as well. Honorable Speaker, we at the State Department are trying very much to collaborate with other state agencies to communicate. With a humble budget of 600,000 a year for communication, as a State Department, we are really struggling and working with other agencies to help us reach out. Then there were issues on the means testing instrument, and I want to say that the means testing instrument worked quite well last year because we only had, so 9,726 appeals. Sounds like there were many, but there were 10%. For every model, a 10% error can actually be accommodated. But of this 9,726, upon reviewing all the information, 5% was successfully processed, while the rest, we explained to them why they had to remain in those bands, and the students are continuing learning. However, the real issue is how do these parameters interact? Because they interact in a very complex mathematical model. And Honorable Speaker, if you would give us some 3 minutes, I would call Mr. Mbala to just explain briefly how the variables interact in the mathematical model. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Mr. Speaker, Honorable members. My name is William Mbala. I work with the Higher Education Loans Board. The various indicators that have been chosen to help us determine the level of need of students for purposes of assisting financially are chosen from the research that was done by KNBS, more specifically the Kenya Poverty Report 2020. And then these particular indicators will go ahead and rank them using analytical process called AHP, whereby we're able to compare one parameter or indicator over another to determine which one has the highest of, or the most important to determine level of need. That process, or that formula which was invented in 1975 by one Professor Saati in the United States, is what we use to be able to give weights for each indicator. Pardon? Thank you.
Yes, go on.
I'm done, Honorable.
You are done. Take your seat. PS.
Honorable Speaker, there was a mathematical function that he was to demonstrate, but I guess it is too complex, but if we...
This is not a classroom. Just
Yes.
answer the questions as they are asked.
Thank you very much,
Yes.
Honorable Chair. So Monari will complete the 3 other questions.
Monari.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I will answer the questions from Honorable Robert Kithinji from Gishugu on collaboration. This is quite a good idea. In fact, in the next funding cycle, we'll be able to collaborate with secondary schools and ensure that we work together for them to give us more information regarding these students. So we'll have a more accommodative model which can be able to get information from secondary schools.
Chair, Honorable Speaker, clarification.
Yes.
My question was, can't you make it easy this year, because this is now that we have these problems, for the students to report, then within a week, we can be able, if you calculate this information to the constituency, we will be able to give you the correct info. We can call all the students that come from our constituencies. We parade them. Yeah, all the needed students, because not everyone will come out. We will just call for every person who wants funding from the university.
You made your point, yes, Monari?
Yeah.
He's repeating what it said earlier, yes, which he thinks you are avoiding.
Yeah. No, we are going to accept all the information. The students can be able to upload that information when they are doing their appeals. So your suggestion is highly accepted, and we shall be able to
You remember, Chair, even the time of appeal that was asked by Honorable Undo has not even been given. So, or 3 weeks.
Yes.
Member for Kishugu.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
He said earlier, probably because you had stepped out, because I saw you here very early, that they have set up desks at every university. That on arrival, and this is what used to happen even those long time ago when we were going to university, you would go there and change your faculty. You could go there and address difficult issues that you are facing. So he says they have set those desks. So your duty now is to tell students from your jurisdiction that if you have any challenges, when you get to your university, go straight to the desk where you can give information that can alter whatever you want to be adjusted if you gave it in error. Monari, isn't that correct?
Yes,
That's what you said?
Yes. That is correct, Honorable Speaker.
Maybe you give a chance to all those who have not spoken, then you'll give direction, Mr. Speaker.
I am going to do that.
Instead of them answering, allow them to ventilate and then you'll give direction.
Thank you, sir. I'll call as following so that we don't leave out anybody. Wamshomba.
But, Mr. Speaker, my question was not partly answered.
It will be answered. Just hold your horses. Okay, P.S.
I asked for tabulation
She said
of
she
data.
has been meeting you in how?
No. I've been calling her, and what I said is the information that I've put here is wrong. It's not correct. And I also asked that you dilate the give us tabulation of data per category.
P.S.
That was entered into determining, because garbage in and garbage out.
You know, Orindikiri, this is self-generated data, isn't it?
Mr. Speaker, if we get that data,
yes,
if we get that data,
to get it to compare with what
yes, with what we have in the ground.
That's
because
information.
75% of student in Meru County, they are all falling between bad 5, 4, and 5. As the entire Meru County.
Like a Kilifi.
Yeah.
Go on.
Something is wrong.
Yes.
Honorable Speaker, I would, with your permission, I will demonstrate. I will demonstrate how we are dealing with some of these issues because they are real. I have a student whose data was shared by one of the members of parliament here, and we downloaded because they had not been properly categorized. And when we downloaded the data that the student had provided, the honorable member said it was not true, and then gave additional information saying this person has 9 siblings, 1 brother is at Great Lakes University, 2 brothers completed Form 4 are idling, a sister is due to join Rift Valley, has a sibling in Form 4 likely to get an A, has another sibling in Form 2, 2 in primary. 1 hasn't started schooling, I've spoken to him and it is a sad story. And he used a cyber guy to complete the data. He wouldn't allow him to check the authenticity. I'm just wondering how many other kids have suffered in the hands of the cyber people. I will set up a constituency help desk, at least 1 per ward. So what I'm saying, Honorable Speaker, is that the issues that we have shared are real and we are addressing them.
Thank you. Wamchomba, followed by Karemba, followed by Kadambi, followed by Jared Okello, followed by Lillian Kogo, Mayaka, Kihara, then Kipchumba.
Mr. Speaker, sir, point of order, please. Because Kajiado County has not been had any member. And we come from marginalized places, please.
Take your seat.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
And those members have called out, please take a minute each. We have overshot our time by more than an hour.
Many other times, Mr. Speaker, we have called parents and students for bursary screening in our constituencies. And more specifically, I speak for Githunguri. And every time you call students to provide information, some of them are so shy to tell you that they have drunkard parents. They are very shy to admit that their home is poor. They are very shy to actually tell you information that they claim it is in their personal space. So in our attempt to screen students and categorize them in the means testing instrument that has been used here, I think we have just got it wrong. Screening students who have not accepted that they come from poor backgrounds and insisting from them to get information, we are not going to get the actual information. I have had incidences where you call those students even into the offices to come and get to understand them more, and they even refuse to attend, only for their mothers to show up later to complain that their students were omitted because the student did not own up to information. So I'm appealing to the PS, please, kindly review the means testing instrument. And I would request and beseech of you, please benchmark from the best. We have had private organizations that have been providing bursaries in our backyard. For example, we have the Wings to Fly program. These people go home to home, not because they did not have access to the student, but they realize that the student may not give you the actual information that can be used to actually engage the needy cases of the students. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank you for having called this Kamukunji, because we realize that we are suffering from lack of information. And from the engagement in this room, we actually can confirm there is a very serious information gap. And if that gap is not going to be sorted in the shortest way possible and days possible, we might land into a confusion. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Karemba. Just press and it comes on.
Thank you. Thank you.
Go to the next.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Now, the new funding model, Honorable Speaker, I am thinking was supposed to address the crisis of the university funding. And I would like to hear from Madam PS whether indeed she believes that the new funding model is going to sort out the funding crisis in the universities. Then finally, Honorable Speaker, I heard a pronouncement by the President on this issue, if I am not wrong, on the issue of the communication that was done by various universities. Because among the letters that I have seen, even those from my constituency, have very scaring figures of about 300,000, 200,000. Have the universities considered the issue of reissuing admission?
It was in public media that they withdrew that communication, I think.
Have they reissued the letters?
Chancellor, is that correct? Don't give him the mic. You know you have to go on record. When you whisper to me that it's sure, it doesn't help the House.
Honorable Speaker, honorable members, yes, we did indicate that the fees or the letters that we had issued earlier on, we know the costs therein, and we promised that as from 5th of August, we will be issuing other letters showing household costs. And those letters
are issuing those letters.
We have already released them, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah, yes, say so.
They are there, they are already circulating, and so the households know what they are paying, and everything else is silent. Thank you.
Yes, I am, and urge that they employ the technology so as to ensure that the letters get to the students as fast as possible.
And you see, Professor, the problem we have is still communication. When His Excellency the President directed that you withdraw the letter, the public got to know. When you withdrew and issued the next letter, the public never got to know. And that's what we should improve, Madam PS. Karemba, you are done. Kadambi, 1 minute. You have been agitated the whole afternoon.
And I'm expecting your, Mr. Speaker, sir, you had me a minute. Mr. Speaker, allow me just to comment first. With explanations through the PS, I find that, Mr. Speaker, they are lacking a lot of information. It might be a very good idea, but how to implement it, how to sustain it, it has a lot of questions. Mr. Speaker, sir, there is burden when identifying the poor children, because I'm a single constituency member of Parliament, Joro, and sometimes we do even locational committee so that we can look for these poor people. Madam PS, I'm interested to understand, do you expect or does your team have a clue that there's a probability for a person qualifying to be band 5, that person can qualify to be band 1? Do you expect that? Mr. Speaker, do they have a room probably for the manual transactions? And I'm asking this question considering that we have so many constituencies, including mine, which is not 100% connected with the matters of electricity. Mr. Speaker, sir, and on that point, let us also remember we have poor children, poor families who even cannot afford a plate of food. Therefore, even the matters of telephones, smartphones, the computers, the issues of internet, it is still a challenge. Do we have a room for the manual transactions? And lastly, Mr. Speaker, please, Mr. Speaker, 1 minute. I find it when they give grace period of 1 year, it is not reasonable. Why, Mr. Speaker? In this country, we have brothers and sisters, and even some poor children we have taken to schools with the CDF, who even have finished universities. Even for the last 2 to 3 years, they have not gotten jobs. Therefore, the period grace for 1 year, it is not appropriate.
For 1 year to do what?
I am advising the ministry, Mr. Speaker, sir, to just go and do adjustment, at least to add it from 1 year to probably 2 to 3 years, so that the people shall have finished the universities. They have not gotten jobs. And this, Mr. Speaker, I'm talking through the experience and what is there today in this country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Okay, Lo. Avoid the temptation to make a speech. Just ask question.
I thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, and I also thank you for convening this Kamukunji, which is quite insightful. Honorable Speaker, I've got 2 notable concerns. Number 1 is that even in organizations that aspire to come up with new systems, there's always a test run that is carried out. And there you determine the efficacy levels, but most importantly, it helps you know which direction the whole organization, together the new system, is heading to. Now, all these problems are coming as a result of confusions. From the ministry itself, we have seen cases where they have issued letters, recall letters, issue new letters. So even to them, they are not sure whether this is a system that is going to withstand the test of time, Honorable Speaker. And how I wish, therefore, that instead of killing the past, or rather the traditional system that we have been accustomed to, that they did it in phases, so that we also know exactly what our students will be.
She said they're running purposes.
Yeah, but they have killed the previous one, Honorable Speaker. Now, Honorable Speaker, one thing that must not escape our attention is that for the longest, students have been paying between 22,000 to 53,000 shillings. Now, with a new funding model, the fees escalated to over 400,000 shillings, but it is clothed in some many funding under it, so that people think that they are only paying that deficit, which is between 20,000 to about 53,000, again, Honorable Speaker. But all these are loans. So what the students must brace for, Honorable Speaker, is that upon graduation, they have huge loans to service. I'm afraid some of them may not even get jobs, but even if you are so fortunate to do, prepare yourself to pay back these monies to the government that will be running into 2 million, 3 million, and even more, Honorable Speaker, depending on the course. So how I wish, therefore, Honorable Speaker, that we just adopted the previous payment model together with the accompanying fees that do not necessarily attract these 400,000 shillings that we now see in the fee structures, Honorable Speaker, that will then be transferred to parents and to the beneficiaries at the end of the day, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you.
And I thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Honorable Speaker, for giving everyone an opportunity to speak. That is the person that you always are. I will be very quick to make comments because most questions have been asked. But Honorable Speaker, allow me to be the devil's advocate here. I want to speak from the point of information. I was at the University of Nairobi yesterday, School of Law, at one of the lecture theaters where they were admitting law students. And Honorable Speaker, I am here to confirm and congratulate University of Nairobi because that's the only place where I went to verify the workability of this system at the ground level. And we had many students who had challenges with fees, application, and they were all gathered in one of the halls. I can report as a member of parliament for Rango constituency, Honorable Speaker, nobody was turned away because of school fees.
Very good.
As a matter of fact. So I saw that, and I want to thank the system, I want to thank the ministry, but you need to do better. Nobody was turned. I don't know what happened in other universities. I don't know what is going to happen in the ones who are going to be admitted later, but yesterday no student was turned away because of his. Madam Pierce, what informs a basic earning of 5,000 and not 2,000 and not 3,000? Where did you get that information from? Number two, why not build hostels for our students, even from the affordable housing scheme? Why not build hostels instead of burdening our students with loan? And this is what depresses young people to the point of committing suicide. Number three, Honorable Speaker.
Three and last.
I am very fast and I've waited, Honorable Speaker, and I'm your friend.
Everybody else has.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mheshimiwa. Thank you, Speaker. Another matter that is of concern to me, I am really worried. If a 1975 model of MTI can be used to get interactions of variables and make decisions, when we have better models, newer models like principal component analysis that can give you interactions of the various. Why did you go for 1975 model? Finally, Honorable Speaker, I want to say this. We do not need as a country, the respect that Kenya gets outside here is more than its measure. We do not need to move from one mathematical model to another one, exchanging models after models and depressing parents. What we need to fix education of this country is free education. That is all we require. We do not want to know how you have gone to school and you come up with this model. Mathematics is not for fixing poverty. We want actualization of issues, qua ground. That is all we want. We do not want, Honorable Speaker, nikamaliza kabisa, we will not talk again. We do not want to depress young people with burden of loans when they start working. Let them go look for jobs that we should also provide as a country so that we make Kenya a better place to live in. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Mayaka, 1 minute.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Don't emulate your neighbor. Take 1 minute.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I'll be very brief. Honorable Speaker, I was just looking at the task force report that was shared together with this document. And one of the things that is very apparent is that, number one, there was no pilot done for this system for you to be able to determine the criteria that you're using, because you cannot use a social criteria methodology on informal income earning Kenyans and people in the agricultural sector. That doesn't make sense. Number two, Honorable Speaker, we have a report here that has recommendations and mitigations without any timelines. It just says what doesn't work, but doesn't say when it can be made to work. Number three, Honorable Speaker, when you're using a 1975 model, it's akin to using a Nokia 3310 in the current age. And the way systems and technology is so dynamic, it means that we are not helping our Kenyans. And finally, Honorable Speaker, if you notice one of the task force recommendations here, it actually says that the PWDs cannot be able to use this system. So what happens to children who are PWDs? Do they not go to university? Because there's no solution given here. Thank you. And finally, Honorable Speaker, I just want to suggest... I thought she
said they get special...
This one is a suggestion, Honorable Speaker,
yes,
that will be very helpful to all members, is that the Q&As that we've asked and the responses that we've gotten, yes, if you can get that together, and also just do brief videos on X and TikTok for the young people who are the consumers of this.
Thank you, Irene. Take your seat.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Jen Kihara.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this chance. We are lucky you called this Kamukunji, which has addressed most of the things, but I can say that actually this information was not for us because they are not addressing the clients. I know the PS had a meeting with the student leaders, which did not end very well. I hope by now, from what has come out of this Kamukunji, most of the answers would have been asked. I'll only be able to answer the clients who come to me, like this one here, who sent me a message, and I beg the PS, Madam PS, to answer for me. Dear our MP, I'm a resident of Kayoro, Naivasha, next to Chief's office, where I live with my 3 sons in a 2-roomed house where we all share 1 room as a bedroom. I'm seeking your help since my firstborn son was schooling at Kagumo High and attained grade A, where he left huge balance, but the principal was merciful enough to clear for me. My problem is that he is to pursue a degree in dental surgery in Nairobi University. But unfortunately, the government placed him in band 5, where I'm supposed to pay 245,200 in a year. Not forgetting that I'm jobless. I have another kid in Form 3, where I also have a balance of fees. I'm writing this to you, it's because you find it in your favor, in your heart, to assist me. God bless you. I'm pleading to be placed, even if it is band 2, where I can even get help from friends in case I got stuck. But band 5, there is even no need starting this. So the recipient of this message is not us. I'll be able to get an answer now here. But the actually this information should go to the parents.
We already have the answer.
That's what I'm saying. It should go to the parents, the clients, and the students.
Now tell that parent that you are told in this house, in this meeting, that when the student reports to the university, he goes straight to the desk that has been set up and informs them that he has been placed in the wrong band on the basis of wrong information. Which wrong information? Let me finish for you.
Okay.
Which wrong information was acknowledged by the peers? That they have taken some students from national schools where the fees is high, and they have operated on the presumption that that gives a background of what their parents earn, which is not true. So tell the parent to tell the son, the student, to go and correct.
That's why this Kamukuji is important, because now they'll get to hear from the media and ask, but the ministry is not doing anything to communicate to the correct recipients.
Exactly. Thank you, Jen. And media help the country on this. Eh? That's why we call you here to help us. Kipchumba Wakili.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for calling us for this Kamukunji so that we can discuss this very important issue. Honorable Speaker, this new funding model heralded a significant shift in policy. Honorable Speaker, going forward, before such a policy is adopted, my proposal is it will be prudent to be brought before the floor of this House to be discussed and members adopt it as a whole. Because, Honorable Speaker, members this report was never brought before the floor of this House so that members could discuss it at that point and understand. Number two, Honorable Speaker, Thomas Fuller said that seeing is believing, but feeling is the truth. Honorable Speaker, I have read through this report. One of the issues that has been raised is that the level of need relies heavily on the information provided by the applicant. Honorable Speaker, why can't the ministry visit the household of these particular students to determine by seeing, by feeling it, so that before the band is, before they are categorized in certain bands, they have visited the household to determine the level of poverty. Some of us, Honorable Speaker, from our community, we take pride in our cows. We take pride in our farms. We take pride in our livestock. Honorable Speaker, it is very hard for a Kalenjin person to tell you that I am poor. So some of these are out of information that is not given correctly because we never, or that they never visited the actual students on the ground. Honorable Speaker, I propose that they form a committee. We did a census in this country, Honorable Speaker, where the households were visited. Honorable Speaker, what stops the ministry from going to from household to determine the actual need of these students?
Thank you. Parashina.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving us a Kajiado an opportunity also. First of all, I need to appreciate your humility and patience. Since 9 up to now, since 10 up to now, Mr. Speaker, today I salute you. Thank you so much. Mr. Speaker, the only issue that I really needed to raise, we should not do experimental exercise with our students. This program is getting as it is kicking on. It should have been able to have, as the way Mr. Honorable Kipchumba said, we could have discussed it before now being going for experiment. These are the challenges that people are facing just because of the policy that the ministry has introduced without first of all explaining to the public. Number two is the issue of as I told you, as I said, I come from the arid areas. The issue of the bands. Band 1, we could have seen here a proposal that the band 1 should be pure scholarship. I might have been coming from a very poor family, and I'm coming from the people of Kajiado South, and I'm very poor, and I don't have an opportunity to get even the 5,000 or even to anything that I'm supposed to be, any income to equate me to 5,000, and I'm left outside. So then my point is, if possible, we introduce the issue of full scholarship, and this full scholarship should be able to take care of me. Maybe if I'm born from the poor background, I should be given a same opportunity as someone who's getting the other opportunity, who can access the education. Rather than if I'm forced to take the 95% loan, that kind of program, then tomorrow the issue of repayment to me becomes also a burden to my life, and even securing an opportunity for jobs become also a challenge. So, if possible, there should be a full scholarship for the students who are categories of very poor, very poor and vulnerable. And even the issue of having 100% should be introduced. My last point is about repayment. When we cleared university, some of us also got the help loan. When you are coming to contest for these seats, we are even to be told you have to come with a clearance from help loan. And if the way they are saying that a 1 year repayment, that again is not, it's not in the good spirit. There should be repayment. If you are able to connect repayment and employment, it should be the better thing. Many people now are suffering the penalties and everything. You get that you have took a loan of 200,000, now it's going to almost 500,000. So for purpose of giving everyone fairness, if I have an opportunity of getting an employment, then my penalties will start there. Not having a penalty for the time I graduate from the university.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Commissioner. Mwalio.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. We really thank you for calling us to come and discuss about the model of funding the university and our colleges. I want to say that everybody has said about the way the assessment of the income of every parent has been done is not correct. And I say this because one of the masons that who called me yesterday, he said because his employer has been transferring money through his M-Pesa to buy materials for where he is supervising the employer's building, 200,000 has passed through his M-Pesa, and therefore the assessment has placed him his income as 230,000, which is not true, because the mason earns maybe 1,500 per day or 2,000, and that translates to 60,000 in a day if he works for 30 days. But now he has been classified in band 5, whereby he cannot be able even to afford to take the student to the university. So that model everybody has talked about should be able to be checked. And if everything is checked, this will be the game changer for educating our students who are needy, because all of them will be able to go to the university.
Thank you, well done. Oyula?
Thank you, Speaker, for the opportunity. Speaker, I have only one issue which I have come across and it's really affecting students in my constituency. That is Butula. There are cases of repeal that have again been rejected. And these students come from very poor background. The cases are rejected because the students were in a national school. And that means they had the ability to pay. So I would want the PS to ask the relevant universities to go up to the family level before the appeals are rejected. Because these appeals come from very needy students. And just because we have sponsored them to go to the national schools, their appeals are turned down.
Thank you. Hamala?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I don't think I will repeat what the other honorable members have already raised. I just have a plea to the PS, Honorable Speaker, who happens also to be my sister from my village, that Honorable Lillian gave me some answers because I was really concerned about how the universities will treat the students on arrival. And she told me that Nairobi University, actually she spoke to all of us here just a few minutes ago, that the University of Nairobi was doing a good job by accepting the students because the misplacement that has taken place has brought a confusion on the ground. One of the parents from my village, his name is Stanley Ndeta, the daughter has been placed in band 5, yet I know it's just a struggler in the village. And so the universities should emulate the University of Nairobi so that this can be corrected. The anomalies were, some of them, Honorable Speaker, the students went to the cyber cafes, and because of the internet problems, they left their information with the operators of the cyber cafes, who entered wrong information or just did what I would say uniform information. And therefore, if this will be corrected at the university level, we will appreciate. Thank you.
Yes, Naomi Wako. 1 minute. Just press.
Yeah. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I stand on behalf of those people who come from the dry areas and desert in this country. And most of the time, even to apply for the form, for the application is very difficult because most of them come from where we do not have even internet. So how, because right now they have been locked out, and how can we make it easier for them to apply? And then number two, we have the issue of IDs. Majority of them do not have their IDs, even as they join universities. It is hard for them to apply and even be accepted.
She said to apply, you use index number.
Index number.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
But it's not an excuse not to have an ID.
Yeah.
We must help our children to get IDs.
To get IDs, yes. So how can we make it easier for them to apply? And because their parents don't work, they have nothing and they have no income, it's quite difficult. How can we make it relevant to them? Thank you.
Last, Ruku. 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Don't make a speech.
Two issues, Mr. Speaker, which I'm requesting the Minister of Education to address or to attempt an answer, is that there are serious concerns as far as management of our universities is concerned. And what we are addressing at the moment are symptoms of this disease. That, for instance, we have a crisis going on at the moment at the University of Nairobi, where the VC, the Vice Chancellor, is drawn out now and then, and we have seen this several times. Also, Mr. Speaker, the allocation of resources to non-core business of the university, which is research and knowledge dissemination, they are left with a very low budget, whereas huge budgets are allocated to building of complexes, construction, renovations, and such kind of project within the universities. What is the ministry doing to this effect to ensure the management of our universities are done properly? The universities which have huge real estate, for instance, the University of Nairobi has one of the most prime real estates owned by universities. What is the ministry doing so that we can be able to use our resources in a most prudent manner, most appropriate manner, and we can even have schemes within the universities paying fees for masters and PhD students, not only depending on scholarship from other countries. And
you're done?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, thank you. Chairman of the committee. Yes, what's your point of order, Mama Dagoretti?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I know we have kept you here just to thank you also on the patience you've had on us. Mr. Speaker, I want the ministry to go and look at one thing. The safety of the students. We must relook at the hostel issue and see how we can bring back the hostels back inside the schools, because they have land. You can work together with those who are the private, but lease them inside so that they can be inside the university for safety, Mr. Speaker. And try and paint Nairobi University. Tell them to paint those old buildings that we have seen for many years, and the curtains and everything. Make the university look habitable for the children who have come from the rural, who have never seen something good than them going to Githurai. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Point of order, Honorable Speaker.
Lillian, I want us to wind up. What's your point of order?
Thank you so much, Honorable Speaker. I would request your August office, Honorable Speaker, and through your directive. We want to work on facts, Honorable Speaker. Is the ministry, or we should direct the ministry to give us fact on paper of who has been placed on what band per constituency, so that we know, and we also do a follow-up, so that we talk from a point of information.
Thank you.
So that we are not just told by the applicants, but we also have that information, and we also help them follow up. Thank you. Thank you, Speaker.
Honorable Meli, I will not invite the PS. All the other interventions have been generic. So I'll invite you as the chair of the committee.
Thank you.
To do a recap.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, first of all, let me thank you more sincerely that we've heard this Kamukunji, and these Kamukunji members have really given their opinions, they have given their questions, they have really ventilated on this, and I think, members, you've done extremely well. If you look at the issues raised by each member, they are actually very particular to particular students, to particular constituencies, and these are the issues affecting the country. And as a Committee of Education, I think, Mr. Speaker, we have competently tried as much as possible to prosecute these issues with the ministry, with the minister, with the PSS, with the funding agencies. But I'm glad that today the issue that we have been pushing over and we've not completed with them is the issue of MTI. I want to thank the member for Angwet, especially by noting that a funding formula is very dynamic. When you bring a 1975 model or a 1990 model to try and use it for 2021, it is a disservice to the nation. And I want to say this, many Kenyans have not known that funding models are being used across, like revenue sharing formulas for KRA or for the Revenue Sharing Commission. The funding formulas need to be changing because of the issues that change in the society. A variable that was well measured about 3 or 5 years ago cannot be applicable today. That's why I want the PS and the agencies to take these issues very clearly, and as a way forward, Mr. Speaker, through your office, they need to give us timelines and dates when these MTIs issue are going to be reviewed per the variables, so that they reflect on the needs on the ground. It is a very good formula. It needs efficiency. It needs accurate data so that people are actually doing it. Banks have been using mean testing, especially on loanees. We have been using it in the banks every other time. And when you are applying for loan, for example, 10 million, the banks will review it down to 1 or 2, depending on the variable that you normally sign. 2 is the issue of communication. And I want to really say this. It is not only in education, it is in the whole government sector. Communication is key. And Mr. Speaker, you know very well that when you lack communication, what takes center stage is going to be misinformation, it will be innuendos, it will be rumors, it will be miscommunication. And that's why the ministry needs to take it up. The PS knows it very well that we've been complaining about it, not only even in the university funding, but in CBC. A good system can be destroyed by lack of communication down to the village level. And this we need to do it both electronically, by way of interpersonal communication through barasas, and even by way of telling it out, even in churches and in barasas. So this is something that the ministry needs to take it up, and we've been pushing them all through. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, I just want to really thank the members, especially on collecting loans, collecting bursaries. If we can collect all bursaries down from the constituency, both public and private, we declare education free in this country. And I want to say this because I've been in discussion with the Budget Office of Parliament, with the Ministry of Education Office, and I think Mr. Masinda was here a few minutes ago. I have done it severally. And we will do this, first of all, develop a paper on how much all the bursaries are, both in government and in private, so that we can see how much can we add the government capitation plus bursaries, and make sure that we issue one statement, no fees charged, not even a shilling, in all public institutions, if that is going to be enough, and see how much we can be increasing it yearly, maybe at 2% based on population, based on inflation, and we can therefore have a very, very easy management of education funding in this country. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, and that's the least one, is that I want to, and we have been saying this to the ministry, let application for funding be together with application for placement. so that when a student is applying for university placement at the end of 4 years, let him or her apply the issue of funding together.
Elachi, you are disturbing the house.
Let the student apply for university placement plus funding conclusively together, so that if there are issues that are raised here, like appeals, like wrong band, it is being addressed as early as January, so that by May, June, those issues of funding and everything else is complete. This issue of applying bursaries or for funding late in the year, 1 month to university admission, is quite not right. And I think that the ministry has to get that. And I think we've told them, let them have one portal where the student is just applying, the last part of it is funding. And when there are complaints, let the complaints be addressed between January, when the results are out, and May, and everything will be okay. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, most sincerely for your patience, and I want to thank members for the very, very good input that you have come in. And I want to ask the ministry, through the PS, kindly take up, I think you have taken enough notes. Please let us see a society where the issues of these members have been addressed and the issues that have been raised are addressed. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah. PS and your team and members, I want to encourage us that what we have had this morning and this afternoon is very, very important. I call this Kamkunji, even as you are on recess, because of the issues surrounding this very important process of funding and keeping our children in institutions of learning, particularly universities and other higher institutions. The engagement has been wonderful. PS and your team you have had. I'll direct the clerk to avail to you a transcribed Hansard of these proceedings so that you get to know what each member said, the concerns of the members, the representatives of the people, and encourage you that by the time we resume the House on 17th of September, I will direct the majority leader to invite your minister to this House as a furtherance to this process we have started today. We want to hear from the ministry what you are doing to consolidate the bursary schemes in the country. We have a lot of duplex processes, like we said. I think the chairman has said, many members have said. We have an MCA giving bursaries, an MP giving bursaries, a constituents based, a women rep are giving bursaries. We have governors giving bursaries. We have your minister giving bursaries. We have banks making their own interventions, and so on and so forth. All these are public resources. If you pull them together, it will not be beyond anybody's imagination to have free education in this country up to university level. Because those duplex activities are just eating away public funds. And schools are competing, which MCA is giving money, which MP is giving money. Put that money together, bring us a report after we resume, and let's see what other interventions the House of Parliament and the executive can collaborate to help the people of Kenya. Because listening to everybody here appears, you can hear the data you are using may be correct because it's self-generated, but people are not properly informed. If you know our communities, people have got the fear of declaring themselves poor even when they are. So they end up putting in information that gives a falsehood that you have some wealth which you don't have. And that social shame about poverty is real. So continue having those desks, continue appraising these processes. A good idea can always give way to a better idea. Let's take this as work in progress. And let's have your ministry, led by the minister himself, come here when we resume. Merely ensure, as the chair of the committee, that the Hansard is transcribed and passed on to them so that they can follow. Vice Chancellor who was here, many members came to me agitated that Vice Chancellors, you also engaging a bit of a reverse gear on this process because it's taking away some of your privileges of making money for your universities. I don't know if it is true. But it is not about one Vice Chancellor or one PS, it's about all of us. Let's get together and get things done and done properly. Lastly, as a ministry and indeed as the whole government, please invest time and a bit of resources in public communication. The public is not being informed enough of the good things that you are doing behind closed doors. Until you came here today, some of these things were strange to everybody. Members didn't know, others have picked up from what others said, from what you said, to ask very informed questions. So try and put some energy, some resources, and some industry in public communication. Let the public know what you are doing. Let the public get to understand and appreciate what you are doing. Thank you very much. Enjoy your vacation. The Kamkunji is now adjourned, and we may now take our leave.
Thank you, dear. Yeah, thank you. Asante. Yeah, asante. Asante. Thank you. Hey.
My sis.
One thing to see. Yeah. And when the neck comes out. Yeah. Apart from tomorrow. So that's the
There are about 5.
Now we have understood.
The other end.
Young man of he's so even citizen. In fact, he went to body, private, primary body.